Off to an amazing start. Welcome, everybody. This is a very special episode of 'Cause I Wanna. I'm Jimmy Snow, and I honestly really just hope that is enough. This, as is obvious, especially by the conflicting titles all around, the misleading thumbnail and everything else, this is not going to be a normal episode of even 'Cause I Wanna. And so I want to be clear about this from the onset. Before we get to that, though, a few announcements. First of all, on Sunday, October 8th at 7 p.m. Central, that is not this Sunday, but the following, we are going to be hosting a Zoom Q&A with Forrest Valkai for our patrons. So go to patreon.com/calltheline if you want to be a part of it. Now, I will say, I suggest you do that now, as there is actually like a really decent chance that I'm not going to always remember to remind you between now and then. So patreon.com/calltheline. Also, check out Takis tomorrow with Arden and Dr. Ben. And then I will actually be back this Sunday with Forrest Valkai for the Sunday show. The Sunday show, not to be confused by the Sometime show with Jimmy Snow. The Sunday show is also with Jimmy Snow. Hey, look, the logos match. I'm easy to amuse. Okay, so about this show and the show that we're doing tonight and how it's different. First of all, the call-in portion of the show, that's not going to start for a while. I would say 30 to 40 minutes at the very least. Instead, tonight, I'm going to preview for you something that most people on the line will actually be unfamiliar with. And it's basically this. I used to do a show. It's been about 2 years now, but I used to do a show on my personal channel, Jimmy Snow, called The Sometime Show. It was a show that covered politics, news, and current events, and it was sort of my take on a daily talk show where I could have fun, be creative, write jokes, but also talk about what's important. If you've ever heard me make a joke on this channel before about I haven't been happy since I was writing the line, or writing the Sometime Show, this is to what that was referring. Anyway, and I'm going to actually be bringing that show back, but this time as an extension of the Line Network. So it's going to be coming back, but in a new form, and one that kind of combines elements of all the things that I've been doing on YouTube for the last 5 years. It'll take place on what is now my personal channel. 1 second, I'm just making sure that nobody's saying like, hey, I just saw lots of live chats coming in through the corner of my eye all at the same time. Making sure no one's saying, hey, no one hears you or something like that. The audio's terrible. This is the worst show ever. That comment's going to come in no matter what. And I might agree. Anyway, it's going to take place on what is now my personal channel, Jimmy Snow, but a part of the Line Extended Network. It's going to be a part of that. The show itself will be made up of segments. The first half is usually going to be loaded with segments related to what's going on now, with later segments responding to videos from apologists and propaganda and other dirt bags. Propaganda spewing dirt bags, I think was what I was wanting to say. And it all got jumbled up in my mouth. Ayo. Anyway, and so you'll have segments like what used to be called Dear Mr. Atheist. That's sort of what I became, dare I use the word famous for. I hate that word, and I wouldn't even, it's not a perfect word for what I became, but people know of me. And the second half is going to feature a call-in portion because we have to pay the bills. And that's what people like. And it'll also end with a super chat function, a specific super chat function called the super chat question of the day, which this will actually be a new segment that is easier for me to handle since I am solo producing, but it's also unique from the super chat segment from the rest of the shows. Basically, I had to come up with something that I could put together that would accommodate the fact that I won't be able to be working on the computer during the first couple of segments. At least not until that sort of stuff won't be handled until I have additional production help. Hopefully that is something we get to do in the future for this show. So I actually want to start by trying it today. Here's how it works. I'm going to ask you all the super chat question of the day, and I'm going to read super chats of $5 or more, but they must begin with SQD. And if you don't begin your chat with that, SQD, you'll see the letters here in a moment when I put the thing up. If you don't begin your chat with that, I won't be able to find it in my system and be able to get it up onto that screen again, because it will be backlogging them. So it has to start with SQD. This is today's super chat question of the day. Will Donald Trump be the Republican nominee or GOP nominee? Why or why not? Send your answer or challenge with a super chat of $5 or more, and your response will be read at the end of the show. Make sure if you want your chat to be read out loud to begin with SQD. So instead of more preamble, I'd like to do it. I'd like to give you a preview of what you can expect Do know that there will be more design elements than what you are seeing today, though I got a whole lot done and was working up until the moment. I still feel kind of a little but there will be even more design elements in the future of the show. In fact, I want to double check one thing before I dare let myself. Okay, we're good. And there's still a lot more that I'm working on developing between now and November 5th, but I'm going to show you what the first couple of segments are going to look like. So I'll start today with the segment that honestly, most of the episodes of the Sometime Show will begin, and it will look very similar, except for that it is now called Our/News. And let me tell you this right now, this is not the graphic. This is a placeholder graphic. There will be a better graphic for Our/News in the future. And Our/News highlights some of the stories that the internet has decided are the most important via the almighty upvote on Reddit. So I'd like to actually begin this segment with a little bit of a riddle. What is the opposite of sex? And I'm going to give you a hint. It's actually happening tonight. Did you get it? That's right. Tonight is the second GOP primary debate. I pointed the wrong way. I'll get used to it. The second GOP primary debate. This is the paramount, the pinnacle of the opposite of sex. The only way this could be the more the opposite of sex is if Donald Trump has agreed to join. But no, as Chris Christie would call him, the loser will be skipping out once again. I quite like that branding, and I think we should hold to it. Loser. And I get kind of annoyed with how people pretend they say the reason why he's not doing these is because he has nothing to gain by going. He's already in the lead. He has nothing to gain, because that's the thing you say about a normal politician. That would be good rationale for a normal politician. This isn't that. This is Trump we're talking about. Sorry. I should have drank more before the show. I'm dehydrated. If he were to actually go to the debate, it would get much, much higher ratings than anything else on TV anywhere, including anything that is featuring him. And right now, most of the networks aren't even covering when he is doing events. So it's just a win for what he prioritized. And honestly, for days after it would be true, he would get so much airtime as people play the clips of him calling other people fat or deranged or stupid or old, all of which would be done ironically, but he'd be doing it. That's what he'd be up there doing. And he would completely consume the airways for at least a week. And we know that that's all he wants in the entire world. You don't notice that I just hid that? I'm trying to simplify things. We know all he wants is ratings. We know all he wants is attention. The only thing he laments is when he's not being spoken about, which anymore isn't very often. So this has nothing to do with good political tactics. It never has, and it never will. And the idea that he would actually be listening to someone who's telling him that this is, it'd be smarter for him to sit out, be listening to anyone who's saying, here's the actual smart move when it's against his instincts. That is a stupid thought. The reason why Donald Trump isn't there is this. Donald Trump is a scared little bitch. He has an actual political record now, and he's also responsible for something like 90 indictments. And the debate stage contains his former cabinet, all of which from the cabinet on that stage do not support him anymore. Trump isn't going because he's scared. So instead, we're going to get the primary lineup that, according to current polls, has nearly no chance of producing a candidate other than Donald Trump. Unfortunately. 7 contenders will take the stage and argue from different levels that they are the best candidate to replace Trump, except for this guy. Vivek Ramaswamy, who I genuinely think is mostly just there to try and catch that VP slot from good old Don. Really, I think that's the only thing he is in it for. Listen to him speak. And look, Vivek, I just got to say, you should be careful. I have a feeling that comes with a future indictment, being his vice president. And by the way, while we're on the topic, I do think everyone should watch the debate. I am sorry that it's on Fox News and maybe you'd have to watch it there, but at the same time, it's important. By the way, it might be on actually later during this show. I think it either just started or it's starting in about an hour. Watch it after. You'll be fine. Watch it after. This now, it after. I have to tell you how to feel about it before you watch. That was a joke. That was a fucking joke. Someone's going to be like, oh, the mask slipped. But you do need to know that this dude, that guy, he is coming for you and is more than likely a rising star in the GOP. So remember, this is a preview show. We're practicing. It gets better. I used to be better at this. He is also, Vivek, by the way, this man is a crazy person, like real bad, very conspiratorial. He's got elements of 9/11 trutherism, vaccine denial, climate change denial, and just about the most arrogant air about him that I've ever seen. And that's coming from me, Jimmy Snow, known douchebag. The maggots are going to love this asshole. And I don't actually know which one is more powerful. Can we count on the Republicans to continue to be racist and reject someone with a name like Ramaswamy? Or will it be more powerful to have a guy like him saying, Republicans aren't racist. Look, they like me. And so they end up putting down their, we'll say metaphorical and sometimes literal tiki torches because, well, Vivek, he's one of the good ones. Now, also joining the stage tonight is going to be Nikki Haley, who, unsurprisingly, and yes, I mean that in a way that is sexist toward men, might actually be the least horrible option. Competing with her actually will also be I don't know why I feel like that warranted a joke, but I don't know. Moving on. Competing her will be ex-New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. I actually kind of enjoy watching Chris Christie fight and argue with people, but this guy also has no real shot. And even if he could beat Trump's politics, I actually mean this as a big guy myself. Not that big, but big guy. You wouldn't be able to beat Trump's fat jokes. That would be the difference. If you could become the obvious lead nominee amongst the non-Trumps, the GOP would react to the fat jokes. And the last could be worse candidate is going to be Representative Tim Scott. Tim Scott, who has no chance at all at being the GOP candidate. And to tell you the truth, in this case, I don't even think it's because he's black. Sometimes that's it, but I'm surprised that isn't it. But this time I honestly think that it's because people like Tim Scott. Even though they don't agree with him, as a senator, as a representative, a lot of Republicans and Democrats like him as a person. No, he is a senator. Why am I doubting myself? I think I said representative earlier. I don't know what I'm messing up. Anyway, people actually like him on the left and the right. He still says really stupid stuff, way too soft on Trump. I'm not suggesting he's ideologically acceptable. We're talking about least terrible options, but as a guy, he's pretty likable, which means the Republicans are not going to pick him. Republicans don't want somebody who is digestible. They want someone who is going to hold the opposition hostage. It is not enough to just have someone that they agree with, that they agree with essentially your religious beliefs, which is what is leading a lot of the GOP these days anyway. You have to agree that you're going to impose those religious beliefs on everybody else, whether they want it or not. So what I'm saying is, in an ideal world, one of those three would be the nominee. They would get the nomination and things would start returning to a sort of normal that we would recognize, a less chaotic two-party system, though obviously in a much more ideal world, we'd get rid of that too. But I'd settle for something just less making you want to wake up screaming every day. Because right now in the world we live in, actually abolishing the two-party system let's be real. It's not happening. Not soon. Everybody gets real charged up about it 9 months before the election. And then the election happens and they're like, 3 years and 3 months and I'm going to care again. I gave that a little slurp on purpose. By the way, I want to make it very clear. Again, I think I have already, but I am in no way saying I favor any of them for the actual job of president, except to say that they would be better than nearly everyone else that is running from the right, that have announced their candidacy. I already mentioned Vivek, seriously, dangerous person, probably not going away, and probably the person we will be fucked up about in the future. But also on the stage representing the dog shit of the Republican Party. I know that sounds like how do you tell the difference between the dog shit and the cat shit? But anyway, is going to be aspiring fascist. You know the guy, Ron DeSantis, with a totally normal laugh that doesn't invoke imagery of trolls and monsters. A man who, honestly, like, as a human resembles flavorless vegan bread with no margarine, but is actually known to consume raw flesh and human rights. Both of those. Then you've got former Vice President Mike Pence. That felt a little delayed. I'm the only one here producing, so if it was delayed, it was my fault. Anyway, former Vice President Mike Pence, who, while he has been more combative to Trump recently, and sometimes you might even find yourself rooting for him as he's saying the president was wrong. That's all nice until you remember that this dude is fucking horrible. Really bad. He's just a nice version of authoritarian religious awfulness. So things he supports: a federal ban on abortion. And let's face it, the moment he could get away with it, he would take away gay marriage. And I don't even want to start thinking about how he would treat trans people. Truly. I remember while Trump was president, trans people saying, like, we don't want Trump to leave office and leave us with Pence. He's much worse. What a fucking bar to be worse than Trump. Anyway, and then lastly, and I believe this person is going to be representing the who vote. You know what I'm talking about? That who? Doug Burgum, a guy who wants to be the Reagan vote, but is such a copy and paste conservative that I actually didn't even bother getting a real picture of him. This is the result of Googling an old man Republican. And I bet none of you knew that. There's a chance, okay, for the record, there's actually a chance that is him. I just don't know. I don't know what he looks like. And if he is an old man Republican, then maybe that is Doug Burgum. Someone tell me. If so, it's a coincidence. Because I don't know. So here we are. The debate is tonight. And from the right, for the GOP, those are the choices. The American right. And so we get to see as they all decide which chalice of poison the GOP wants to drink and potentially impose on the rest of us. Now, all indications are that they're sticking with their favorite poison. I'd say it's like a 90% arsenic and 10% orange crush. Orange crush is fine. That was a joke about, Trump and how he doesn't know how to use creams. That seems to be the one that they're going to go with. But that's enough of that. It's depressing enough, and we already have the debate to watch later. So let's move on to other news. Let's get away from politics. Don't worry, we'll be back to Trump later. But let's talk about this. This was actually an interesting thing, and it may seem innocuous, and like, what could Jimmy have to say about it? I got things to say about it. But the story is an O'Reilly employee, and by that I'm talking about the car parts chain, not that old Fox News serial harasser, has been arrested and charged with second-degree murder after a fight broke out between employees and two shoplifters, which left one of those would-be thieves dead. And I just have to decide which way I want to take this first. Let's go with the milder thing. Listen, I don't actually know all the details yet. And for all I know, he will be exonerated because it'll be proven that the shoplifter actually started the fight, put his life into danger and stuff like that. But I will say that's unlikely because self-defense trials, it rarely makes it even to trial if there's a good reason to believe it was in self-defense. A lot of district attorneys are not going to try those because they're kind of a guaranteed loss. So let me just say this generally in response to what I see in a lot of comment sections on stories like this one, but also on stories like defending police who shoot someone when they're not doing something really dangerous at all. Whether or not you agree that this nation should have a death penalty for some things, is there any person in the entire country who, besides, I suppose, like a religious fanatic, who actually believes that shoplifting would be one of the things that warrants a death penalty? And as a society, we simply cannot encourage young men. Let's face it, that's where the big problem is. I'm not saying there wouldn't be some others, but it's going to be a lot of Batmans, a lot less Barbara Gordons, thinking that they can take the law. That was a dig, by the way. They're not Batman. Batman's kind of a fascist, but the comics are awesome, and I'm going to keep watching the movies. But anyway, to think that they can take the law into their own hands when they see someone that's trying to lift apart. And so that brings me to my next point. And this is actually the much more important one. This is the one that I don't care as much if you agree on the one before. This one, if you don't agree with, we just don't get each other. Do not go to prison for billionaires. Don't do it. O'Reilly Auto has a market value of over $50 billion. Do you know how much the average I looked this up. Do you know how much the average O'Reilly Auto Parts store worker makes? It's around $12 an hour. They do not care about you. Do not protect their financial interests with your life. It reminded me of this story from years ago, and this is, I think, will illustrate where I think you should be, if anywhere, on this. Years ago, I was working for a cell phone provider in a mall, and I had to stand at the doorway doing that annoying thing that I'm sure you've seen people do, where you shout at people who are walking by, seeing if you can coax them in, see if you can change their service or upgrade a line or something. And across from me was this kiosk that I'm sure you've seen many of these. They sold belt buckles and jewelry, and it was basically a part of a giant chain of mall kiosks whose origins you will not feel good about if you research. You just won't. It's pretty shitty. Anyway, there was a guy passing, and that guy, I saw him see that the employee was sort of on the other side looking out and talking to someone else of the kiosk. And so he reaches up and he slyly grabs this belt buckle and starts to put it in his hoodie pocket as he catches eyes with me. And so when that happened, this is what I did. I went, "Hey, man." And I basically gave him that, a sort of cheeky, like, "Come on. Hey, man." That was it. Hey, man, come on. Hey, man, the words, come on, the look. And listen, what happened? He smiled and he just put the buckle back and he walked on. And that's where we left it. That is the amount of effort you should put into protecting the inventory of a rich corporation. And honestly, I don't even know if I still think that. If it was today, I might have just done the look and not said shit. Like, just sort of like, oh. But I'm saying follow the hey man policy. That's the maximum effort. If you work for a company that doesn't even pay you a living wage, $12 an hour, you don't owe them any more than a hey man. Hey man. And even if now we're going to ignore that there are also fucking monstrous, terrible companies in this country. We'll talk about them another day, like restaurants who will take a dine and dash bill out of the server's pocket. Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that a different day. But even if in this case, the person hadn't killed the guy, they still even if you just subdued them until the police came, the amount of soreness that a fight makes, an altercation makes, even that isn't worth it. I don't know how many of you have been in fights. Even when you win a fight, you don't win. It hurts. Don't do it. They're not paying you to do that. That's not enough money. $12 an hour to expect you to do that. So please learn the lesson that I would say about half of the tweet replies under Elon Musk need to learn. Billionaires do not love you. Stop defending them. Okay, we're going to move on. But before we do, I want to say this. I need you to get your surprised face ready. It's actually very important that you're ready to be surprised because this is going to be a big one. So let's stretch our faces out. Stretch them out. I'm guaranteeing you're going to be in utter shock just moments from now. Stretch out your shock face. Some of you aren't doing it at home, and some of you are and look so silly, and I fucking love you. But some of you aren't. Get it ready. You got your shock face ready? Here we go. I warned you. We're bringing it back. Donald Trump committed fraud. Was that a delayed shock face? Did it seem disingenuous? I know, hard to accept. I'm sure it is. But it's now official. A New York, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I was trying to hold it together as I was just imagining random people sitting at home right now, like watching me on their phone, just go, oh, okay, I'm ready. Anyway, a New York district judge has ruled on a civil lawsuit brought by the New York Attorney General Letitia James, someone you might recognize from Trump trying not to sound racist in his Truth Social posts, and has found that Donald Jr., and Eric Trump are all liable for years of fraud. Now, this investigation has been going on for a while. You might remember these accusations specifically that in seeking loans and insurance, Donald and his family would intentionally lie about the value of assets and properties. Famously, Michael Cohen testified to this, and that was a big point in deciding to open this investigation. And what I just described, lying intentionally about the value of assets and property, that is called fraud. And it's the kind of fraud that if you are a smaller borrower, you will never get away with. And there are going to be people who try to defend him and go, look, he was just doing normal estimation practices that are normal to do. And he got things a little off because maybe he was feeling a little bit frisky that day. But there's a couple of things. There's a couple problems with that. One, many of the properties had recently been appraised. Banks do not allow people, this would be number two, to appraise their own value for this very reason. But also, some of the lies are just straight up lies. Trump actually lied about the size, as in the square footage. It's not the only thing he's lied about the size of. Well, as in the square footage of his Trump Tower apartment. And we're not talking about a few square feet of this room. I'd say it looks, maybe it's 200 square feet. Let's call it 250 and call it a day. Donald Trump tripled the square footage of his apartment. And you know what's even wilder? The Trumps aren't actually pretending that they didn't do that. They're saying you shouldn't care because they didn't default on those. They didn't breach. They haven't been accused, as far as we know, of contract. No one said they defaulted on any of them. In other words, what was it today? Actually, I saw after I wrote this that they've also added there's a disclosure at the very beginning. We have a beautiful disclosure right at the beginning that says that these are not accurate estimates and should not be taken as such. That was something he said today. So in other words, Donald Trump has inflated the values of his properties so much that he was able to borrow against more and literally reduce the risk of investment. That's a tactic. If you could just borrow I'm going off too much. It just is so annoying because it's so transparent. But this is also Donald Trump, who was given the opportunity to estimate his own height and his own weight when he was booked at the Fulton County Jail. And this is the man who said, I'm 6'3" and 215 pounds. Lean. Ready to fight. I don't think I need a punchline here. The voice was a little bit of one, but I think everybody at home, I think you got this, right? 215, 6'3". 215, 6'3". For the record, and I don't show you much from the side because I don't want you to know as much. I'm 6'2", and let's just say 250. I'll lie a little also. I'm 6'2" and 250. This guy's 6'3", 215 beautiful pounds. Every pound so lean, so beautiful, so Maybelline. But I cannot tell you how satisfying it is right now to actually finally see this con man of a leather balloon finally see some consequences to being said con man, a habitual liar, and an obvious con man. And a loser, loser, loser. Because the Trump Organization, as of Tuesday, is essentially out of business, and he is not happy. The summary judgment from the district court, by the way, this is how bad it is. They suspended virtually all of Dr. Dummy D, the daughter diddler's business licenses. I had to practice saying that. You missed it, and you're like, wait, what was that? It was Dr. Dummy D, the daughter diddler. Good luck. That belongs. No, that's not really a t-shirt sort of thing, but it belongs on something. And look, I know also that was a cheap shot and probably an easy laugh, but he's welcome to it. I'll let him have it as his wrestler name for free. But listen, so what this actually means, coming back on track, this means that there are hotels, golf courses, and condos, the lifeblood of the Trump organization, that are no longer allowed to operate under the Trump name. This is basically business murder. And in response, Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer said this is how you actually get to the president, at his wallet. He actually doesn't care if you make fun of his voice, but I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to do it more often, honestly. Especially if he's going to keep running. I'm going to keep making fun. He just cares. He doesn't care if you make fun of his voice, his hair, anything. He cares that you think he's rich. And that's from Michael Cohen. So I understand. Maybe take it with a grain of salt. But I do think that he ended the interview comforting all of us by saying, hey, look, I used to be a piece of shit, but not anymore. I used to do the whole thing. Slicked back hair, sloppy steaks, paying off porn stars, only going to parties to use the zip line. But I'm a good guy now. Don't worry about it. Hey. That's exactly what his voice sounds like, by the way. Ben Stiller played him on Saturday Night Live, and that was one of my favorite moments. Anyway, we'll once again move on from Trump, but I promise you, we'll be here back again. Will it be today? Who knows? Yeah, it'll be today. There's more later. There's somehow more later. But I want to talk about something stupid that's happening in Texas. There's a 17-year-old black student in Texas that was suspended for more than 3 weeks from a school called Barbers Hill High School, somewhat ironically, the name, for what the school district alleges was a violation of the dress code for male students because of his hair. The hairstyle in question included braids, such as he is sporting here, and occasionally a ponytail, but the school district claimed that he was violating regulations on hair length, which in that district prohibits male students, still now, listen up, their current day policy prohibits male students from having hair that extends below the top of a t-shirt collar or below the eyebrows when let down. Yes, correct. When let down, not if let down, not if you let it down, not you can tie it up and keep it up there. If they think, if even okay, I'm getting ahead again because I get really angry and I just ignore what I'm supposed to say. So before even assessing if that is not a ridiculous standard, like on the basis of this is their thing. Hey, I'm going to be them. Hey, that well-kempt hairstyle you have, we suspect that if you brushed it out, that would go past your neck. And we can't have that because that's for girls and you're not a girl. But the kicker on this is that Texas literally passed a law this year because of things like this. It's called the Crown Act, and it was actually passed bipartisanly. And it prohibits discrimination against hair textures and styles that might be traditional to a person, especially based on their race. But wait, there's more. This actually isn't the first time this district had this specific problem. There is an active lawsuit from before this right now, which actually resulted in an injunction against the district policy, and that lawsuit is ongoing. And the Crown Act, the passage of it, was in part largely motivated by this problem at this school district. And yet, since passing the Crown Act in response to this school district, that school district is claiming that they don't think they're violating the Crown Act because that new law does not expressly mention length of hair. I guess, look, we'll be opening the line soon for people to call in. Would anyone like to call and defend this? Would anyone like to try and explain to me in a way that doesn't invoke antiquated attitudes surrounding race and gender? Would anyone like to make an actual defense that this policy was, first of all, one that makes sense in the first place, and second, isn't a violation of the Crown Act? I'm open to hearing it. But I think the only way you could actually convince me that this is not just express racism, and by the way, also some sexism in there too. It's 2023, and there are different hair length standards by sex in this case. The only way you'd be able to prove to me that it's not, or convince me rather, that it's not racism and sexism is if you actually showed me that the main characters behind this are also very heavily involved with their homeowners associations, and that basically they will abuse the smallest amount of power when given the opportunity. Moving right along. I love this one. There are new surveys that have revealed that Gen Z is actually 3 times more likely to be duped by an online scam than their own baby boomer grandparents. The same report also showed that they were more than twice as likely to have their social media accounts hacked. I don't know what to do about the, I got to figure out how to not burp during shows. When I talk so much, it like builds up. Maybe it's because I don't talk enough. I'll just have to talk more. Practice. Anyway, what I want to do right now is actually address Gen Z directly in response to this news that they are more likely to be conned by online attempts. And let's get very, very cozy. In fact, Gen Z, I'm going to talk to you directly and come closer, please. That's good. It's very close. Hi there, Gen Z. It's me, Jimmy Snow, and I have really incredible news for you. I've just inherited $20 million from a South Australian prince who was my great uncle's roommate. Now, there's a problem, and that's that I don't actually have the cash to cover the filing fees. So if you'll send me $50 to my Cash App, my PayPal, or my Venmo, I'll send you back half, $10 million, once I file. And by the way, I just want to say, Gen Z, that I can tell you have a kind and honest soul, which is why I want to share my good fortune with you. God bless you. Okay, look, this isn't my first day on the internet. I want to go ahead and make some points before I get attacked for that bit by what is frankly the cruelest generation when it comes to words. They won't use slurs, but they will tear apart your self-esteem in under 7 characters. It's pretty obvious, honestly, why this is true. The younger you are, the more accounts you are likely to have. Not to mention, the more likely it is that you would already have something that is scammable, like Cash App, like PayPal, or whatever else. And listen, I'm not trying to be shitty to boomers either. I'm sure that there are 4s of you who watch this show. But look, you 4 are technologically literate and capable. But I also do live in the world. And I've met some of the rest. As I mentioned, I used to work in the cell phone world back when mass adoption was becoming a thing. And what I'm telling you is that I've helped a lot of boomers set up their smartphones. And if I'm running a scam outfit, I'm going to maximize my profits by not wasting a lot of time on the people that I have to explain how to open their email, or what NFC is, or where the internet goes while they're sleeping. I think it's best, honestly, that we as a society across all age groups just unify here. Let's not worry about who gets scammed more or less. Let's get together and say as one, scammers, spammers, and PH fishers with a PH, those are the scum of the earth, and we should put them honestly on the same rocket that we want to send Elon with, all the way to Mars. Anyway, back to our previous segment. And on to something new. This one's sort of a downer. Finally, for this r/news segment, we're not done talking about the news. But for r/news, the Texas gunman who went on a very race-fueled hate massacre at Walmart in 2019 here in the state of Texas and killed 23 people has agreed to pay about $5 million in restitution to the victims' families. So just to be clear, while I can't say for sure like that he didn't win the lottery that I didn't know, I want to point out, we're talking about a guy who went to community college and then worked at a theater after he dropped out of community college. And there's nothing bad about any of those things individually. You know, if you need to drop out of school, drop out of school. And working at a theater, hey, people got to see movies and someone's got to do it. They should pay a living wage. They don't, but they should. But I will say, it doesn't suggest that this individual has a multi-million-dollar rainy day fund. I was going to put his picture up and then I decided not to, but I feel like there is a little bit lost as I was addressing him from it, but I think it's probably better not to. Anyway, why do we even do this? The guy has 90 life sentences to serve for his massacre. How is he going to get any of them $5, let alone split up $5 million, which he has agreed to pay? If the number, as it seems, is purely symbolic, what kind of math are we even doing here on the value of human life? If it's just for symbolism, and the total amount was actually $5,557,005.55. There were 23 victims. That comes out to around $250,000 per person. In fact, the exact number is $241,608.94 per person. But this, not, again, I didn't end up putting the picture. So anyway, the asshole murdering douchebag isn't even going to be able to start paying that shit. So if that's it, and it's all symbolic, why not go nuts? We're going to value human life at $250,000, $1 trillion each. All of them get $1 trillion. Agree to pay a $23 trillion settlement during your 90 life sentences. The amount he's going to pay off will be the same in both percentage and total dollar amount. 0. But instead, the state apparently decided that each person is actually worth than a 2-bedroom house in most major cities. Like, as you're sitting right now, doesn't that feel like shit? That feels shitty to me. I don't know. Maybe I just don't think that feels great. Now, that concludes. Again, the transitions later on is going to be a little bit different. What would usually be the first segment of the Sometime Show. Some days it'll be longer, some days it'll be shorter. Today seemed a little bit long, like really long. And it seems like, Jimmy, you should probably be done and moving on to the column portion, but no. But I will do this. Before I move on, I am going to open the lines now so that people can begin to get cued if they so choose, and they can talk to the screener and tell them what they're calling in for. If they want to challenge on political stuff or talk about the existence of God, we'll be doing that here in a little bit. So what did I write actually on the thing? If you want to talk about the news or God or any of the other themes on this channel, you can call now and queue up for the call-in portion. Those lines are now open, and those calls can now begin. I don't know if I want to do, how many lines do I want? Because I'm not going to go all fucking night. Before we do get to that, we're going to do another preview. And the preview will be of the second segment that I'm usually going to be doing on the Sometime Show. It will almost always follow our /news directly. And it is somewhat very similar to the first segment of the Sometime Show, but with two major differences. First of all, in this new segment, the stories don't have to be popular on Reddit or r/news. It can just be something that I want to see. But mostly, the main thing is that coverage of each one is going to be much shorter. Usually, I'm just going to say what happened, and then I'm going to make a point or a joke. That segment in the past was what we used to open on. It was called Roast the News. But now we're going to be starting with our /news, and this new segment is instead going to be called Roast the Rest. Again, this is a placeholder. The graphic will be better. It'll be better. I promise. Anyway, roast the rest. Let's begin. Today, Meta announced their new headset, the Meta Quest 3, which will launch on October 10th for $500. They're promising it to be the best spatial computing device for its cost for years to come. This is a reference to Apple's new Vision headset for its cost at only $500 compared to $3,300. It's promising full color pass-through to bring in 3D holograms and objects directly into your actual space, like virtually putting TVs up on your wall or being able to play an RPG on your actual table with people from everywhere. And some of you will already know I am super into VR, and this headset is actually a big deal. I think that this is going to bring a lot of people in. The last one did, but this has these new augmented reality capabilities. It's going to bring a lot more people into space and hopefully lead to development. But on the off chance that that isn't what happens, because I really want it to succeed, I've decided to do this. As a leftist shill, the kind I actually have access to the space lasers, and I hope that impresses you because I'm a Gentile. It's Gentile space lasers. I'm actually going to be instructing the Clinton Foundation to go ahead and release the next pandemic virus. I don't have to say, I don't have much to say about this, but I did watch so the joke there, I realized I didn't finish it. The idea is we're going to drive everybody inside where VR, I forgot to write the end. we're going to drive everyone inside with a new pandemic where VR would be more popular. Anyway, I don't have much to say about the actual keynote. I did watch it. One thing did stick out for those of you who keep track of the metaverse stuff from Facebook, from Meta. Every time they would mention Horizon Worlds, which is this metaverse app from Meta, the crowd went wild. But Horizon Worlds is one of the worst community apps. Amateur people build better community apps than Horizon Worlds. And maybe it's getting better, but Meta, next time you want to convince us that anybody likes Horizon Worlds, pay fewer people to pretend they've ever even tried it, let alone that they're excited about it. Anyway, the more important question here is about this, and I'm saying this to you all directly. Could I have $500? Thank you. PayPal, Cash App, Venmo in the description. Did I put a link to the Jimmy Snow channel in the description? I need to do that. If a mod could go ahead and do that, I'll copy and paste it into the description. Again, that's where the show will be happening. Moving to the next story. That one I took too long after saying it wouldn't take as long. Rite Aid has announced that they will be closing hundreds of stores as the chain braces for bankruptcy. In response, every person in the entire world at the same time collectively said, that makes sense. Everyone. You remember, you did it. We can now also confirm that Walgreens and CVS are starting to re-examine their business models. It turns out that creating a store where people mostly go to get Plan B, diarrhea medicine, and pregnancy tests, but not offering a public bathroom, that might not be a slam dunk. Ukraine has claimed that they have successfully killed the commander of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, and I think that's Black Sea neat. That's the whole joke. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to do a rhyme. Also, it's worth noting that now Russia and Ukraine are arguing over whether it happened, with Russia claiming to have video evidence of him in a video call. So who knows? But that thing I said sounded nice. But honestly, I'm just tired of this war. It's a ridiculous war. And I'm also tired of how many stupid people don't understand it's really important that Ukraine win that war. So I guess I wanted to bring it up, mostly as an excuse to be able to say directly into camera, and I know this is controversial, fuck you, Russia. You don't deserve how cool your hats are. But they are cool. You know what I'm talking about? The kind of furry cylinders. A 13-foot alligator has been put to death in Florida after it was found swimming with a dead woman in its mouth. You're welcome. We blurred out. There's not a body under that. It's just a streak of blood. Anyway, before slaying the creature, I think it's actually the alligator's blood, by the way, where we blurred out. I don't even think it's the woman's. Anyway, before they slayed the creature, the government did do a thorough investigation into the incident to make sure that when the alligator killed the woman, he hadn't used a handgun. Because had a firearm been involved under Florida's Stand Your Swampy Ground law, they actually would have had to throw it a parade and make it the mayor of Tallahassee. Instead, used its chompers, you're dead. Honestly, I don't even know how they justify killing an alligator for that. Look at their most famous congressperson. You want to tell me that alligator's in trouble for potentially killing, but at least trying to consume a woman, when this man has clearly consumed the most dangerous game? Just look at him. This is the face of a man who has tried barbecued long pig. I like to think that people are going to Google what long pig means after now. I don't know if that's a common. Does everyone know what that word means? That phrase? Is long pig known? Is it known? Gavin Newsom. I should move that. That's Gavin. The other guy was the cannibal. Cannibal. Gavin. Cannibal. Gavin. Is anyone impressed how I'm doing this yet? It's mind control. I have mind control shortcuts. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, who everyone is still pretending is not being groomed to replace Joe Biden, either for this election or at a minimum for 2028, even though the Biden campaign dispatched him to be the person to respond to the GOP debate tonight and everything else I've told you. But anyway, Gavin Newsom in California signed a bill Tuesday doubling the taxes on guns and ammunition sold in the state, which is great. The money is actually going to be used to expand protections at schools against gun violence, which I think we all think, thank goodness, now your children, they're going to be able to wear name brand bulletproof backpacks made by Supreme as they flee their individual school massacres. sorry, I get it. It's dark, but this isn't going to help much. Like, will it do something? Yes, it's better we're doing something than nothing, but this is not the kind of stuff we need. And honestly, I don't even know what to say anymore. Is there even a point in you've heard all of the rants already? And then all the people, but it's a mental health. Yeah, there's also a mental health epidemic too, but we are very far from fixing all brains. So maybe we can also start admitting on top of that guns are a problem. The problem. But I live in the US. I don't know about everybody watching, but I live in the US. So I'm just kind of screaming into a void and pissed off about it. And maybe it's a little cathartic for you. And look, I get it too, because there's conflict. I'm one of those people who simultaneously, I hate the private ownership, especially of war machine style guns. But I own guns. In fact, I own at least one war machine style gun. And lately, I kind of tell leftists and queer people, you should probably have guns too. It's one of those things where it's like, well, fuck, as long as they've got them, I'm not going to be caught without them, but it's time to take them away from both of us. We'll never do it though. And you know why? Because God bless America, land of the guns. Yes, we need them. I don't have it. I'm making this up as we go. And I lost what the next line I was going to say, want to breed them, but that doesn't even make much sense. No, I guess it does. I'm sure that there's a lot of hillbillies who have gotten their dick stuck in a gun. Anyway, unfortunately, there are new Supreme Court precedents that have recently been set that also mean even trying to do this, what Gavin has tried to do, laws like that and others that have passed recently, they're almost certainly going to be struck down by what is right now a right-wing extremist court. And that is a plague on the U.S., as is gun violence, but we're still not going to study it, and we're going to keep doing fucking nothing. So let's move on to other people that suck. This is Bob Menendez. Hey, Bob. Democratic Senator Bob Menendez is denying allegations of corruption after the Justice Department indicted him on many charges related to bribery. This after investigators uncovered $500,000 in cash, $100,000 worth of gold bars, and a Mercedes-Benz, all at his house, and all that seemed to be a part of the scheme. Now, Senator Menendez has assured everyone that this is all a big misunderstanding, and I think we should hear him out. Because the senator, turns out, actually has a condition where he spontaneously grows and loses teeth rapidly. And so it turns out, according to Senator Menendez, that $500,000, we can now all be confident and understand that's actually from the tooth fairy. And the gold bars that seem to have appeared sometime after a trip to Egypt, he's thinking that that's probably the result of this ancient mummy curse he heard about that's meant to turn him into a mummy, and then his mummy body would be given to King Tut's friend, who was famously known as Todd. Todd, it was actually his brother. It was Todd Tut. Todd Tut. Todd Tut. As for the Mercedes-Benz, the senator can also be quoted as saying, bro, I don't even want to address the Mercedes until you see how fucking rad I look behind the wheel. Like I said, let's hear him out. Yeah. So anyway, basically everything I just said wasn't true, except for the material things like the bribes, the money, the gold bars, all that stuff. That's true. He didn't say the tooth fairy thing. I said it. I made it up. But if you are interested in the actual story, I highly suggest you go check out the evidence included in the indictment. And I think the reason why I didn't mind just joking about it is because this appears very clear cut. The senator is totally entitled by the courts to a presumption of innocence. But I'm Jimmy Snow, and I'm here to tell you that dude fucking did it. He did this shit. And I'm going to be honest, put him in a cell with Trump. I don't give a fuck if he is a Democrat. I'm not even a Democrat, so why would I? But fuck him. Fuck him and anybody who's corrupt. Fuck that guy. He definitely did it. He definitely did it. Speaking of Donald Trump and prison and indictments, I told you it'd be back. Let's talk about him some more. There's a tweet from a campaign event in South Carolina from Monday. There was a tweet through a tweet. The disgraced, twice impeached overuser of bronzered ex-president claimed he bought a Glock handgun from a local retailer. There is only one problem. He didn't. So now I want to start the conspiracies. We have to decide which situation was more likely. Why didn't he buy the Glock? Here's what I think is situation one. Trump is basically once again lying about spending money to get the approval of the people watching, but then he welches on the bill at the very first possible opportunity. This actually happened not that long ago. He famously entered a diner and he basically said he'd be paying for everyone's meal, and then he dashed. Then there's option two, in my view. Option two, someone took him aside and pointed out that we're going to have to turn you in a few months. And when you do, you'll lose the gun because you're not allowed to have it as a felon. So I think that's not that someone was like, Mr. President, what do you want? I buy this Glock. I like it. It's Glock 45. I like a Glock 45. Like me. Sir, one problem. You're gonna go to prison. Okay, I really do think that everyone around him knows that is coming, but maybe I'm not being a very good skeptic. Maybe that's too much of a conspiracy. But let's all just agree. I said it, so it's true. Perfect. I do like that third option. It's a lot more fun. And sorry, was that the third or the second object? Here's the final option, and this one's actually the most fun of all. Donald Trump is broke and he couldn't afford the Glock. I know that's not very likely because there are a lot of stupid people in this country responding to every Trump email with, "Go get him, Mr. President, got your six." And then they're attaching their entire life savings to the email. That's not how it works, donations, but let's pretend it is. But honestly, there's a chance that at this point, they have to keep so much money tied up in lawyers and legal fees that they can't afford to risk it. Sir, that gun is $400. We're going to need that to buy 13 minutes of legal time with a lawyer for what you've done. They're not coming cheap. This next story is one of my favorite. I kind of dig Target. Target has said it will be closing several stores in major cities across America, citing theft and violence. And that's, by the way, that's awful. And it's awful for a lot of reasons. I think I feel the worst for the employees who are going to be out of work. So it is sad that many stores across major cities are going to have to close. That's going to fuck over a lot of people. But I do want to point something out. Your store is literally called Target. Like, you get it, right? Can you imagine being on the board meetings where these people are like befuddled? Guys, I don't get it. Why are the criminals targeting us? What makes us such a tempting target? It's just not fair. Target shouldn't be targeted by criminal targeters as an easy target for crime. I mean, even if it was just for the meme, you're going to get a couple of silly guys together who decide, do you want to pull off a heist? And the one guy's going to say to the other, well, who's the target? Exactly. I wasn't just letting the punchline set in. I was having a hard time making the shortcut change the scene again. In response to the news, Walmart, excuse me. In response to the news, Walmart released a statement that reads, "Come shop at Walmart. We assumed you were stealing anyway." I do feel bad, though. I actually quite like Target for being a gay-friendly store. But to be clear, it's a gay-friendly store. The goodwill gets eaten up by it being a multi-billion-dollar corporation ran by billionaires who operate like billionaires. But I like that there's, a store that's been a little bit better to gay people. They've been a little bit cowardly on some stuff lately too, but they've tried, they've made the effort, and it hasn't only been when it's been financially advantageous, though again, they've been a little cowardly. But we'll say that it's a decent gay person store. It's at least that. Now, speaking of billions of dollars, by the way, the state of Tennessee is trying to proceed with plans to reject nearly $2 billion in federal funding. This is the wrong one. That's for the North Korea story. Where is the Tennessee? Okay, there's a missing one. We're going to leave this one up. No, that's not the right. And I'm going to have to, yep. Okay. So there's a missing image. God, this is going so great. Let's just leave it on Trump with the Glock, but then we'll talk about, it's about Tennessee being stupid, and I feel this represents enough of that, right? That's good enough. Anyway, this is sad. I need to reset. I'm very sad about that other story's picture is coming soon. I also need to fix now this, and boy, I'm just having a good time. All right, starting it over. Speaking of billions, the state of Tennessee is trying to proceed with plans to reject nearly $2 billion in federal funding for their education system. Government officials wish to turn down that money, which they say comes with too many strings attached. For example, if they were to take those education dollars, the federal government would absolutely insist that the children learn how to read, and that the children learn how to identify and swipe left when they come across their cousins on dating apps. And the state has agreed that those are steps too far in the great state of Tennessee. I was actually born in Tennessee. Don't hold it against me. There's an anti-education protest there was an attempt at an anti-education protest to be organized in the state, but it actually fell apart when participants were too fucking stupid to figure out how to use their navigation apps. That's partially because they thought GPS stood for Gay People Store, so half of them showed up to Target, where they were subsequently robbed. Brought it back. That joke. I really wish that this had gone smoother. Maybe I should have just left it on, and now we're back on Target. There was also just too many elements to that joke, but I wouldn't change a thing. There wasn't a rob. The part at the end. The part of the beginning was true. They are actually trying to turn down $2 billion almost of education funding in Tennessee because they don't like the government federal strings. Like, what? Are they going to have to learn math? Gay. And finally, the U.S. soldier I'm breaking it all. Finally, the U.S. soldier who fled to North Korea before being sent home from South Korea, where he was in legal trouble, has been returned to U.S. custody today. Back in July, Travis King ran across the border into North Korea while touring the DMZ. And what really shocks me is that means North Korea gave him back after like 2 months. That's it. Apparently, the only way to get out of North Korea quickly is to tell them that you want to be there. He tried to get into North Korea. Clearly, North Korea thought anybody with that level of delusion wouldn't be worth the fuss. We'd love for you to believe Kim Jong-un doesn't poop, that he can fly, and that when it rains, and decides when it rains, but if you're going to say you want to live here, well, that's just crazy talk. Get out of here. I decided to make that character a turn of the century sort of fight promoter because I was just positive there was no way to do an impression of a Korean soldier authority that wouldn't get me canceled. So we went with this. This is what the North Koreans sound like, and you can take that one to the bank. And that's the last story. That was well, Target's back. That was the final story. That's it. That's the end of the preview. We'll move on to the call-in portion, and then we will be doing the super chats at the end. What I might just do here for a second is give mods and stuff a chance to, if they feel like there's something they need to get. Someone said at least we know the line will never get hacked. It's already done it once. I don't know what you're talking about. I hope so. A reminder that we have a super chat question of the day. If I can remember how to put that shortcut up. Yep, it's right there. Will Donald Trump be the GOP nominee? Why or why not? A reminder, as you can see the letters up here at the top, your response needs to be $5 or more, and it has to include SQD. At the beginning would be best, but as long as it's in there in that order, I should be able to find it quickly. But we do have a sort of, it's a little bit harder than normal. Also, there's somebody in chat who's apparently got, I don't know, the SQD is making it look like they're, what am I even saying? Just shut up, Jimmy. Just do your thing. Okay, I'm adding the people who answered the question so far. So SQD, the super chat question of the day, will Donald Trump be the GOP nominee? Started with SQD, make sure it's $5 or more, and that will be the segment we end the show on, and that will be very exciting for everybody, especially me, because I need money to live and eat and start silly shows like this one, which the goal will be to run 4 days a week. I there's a chance when we get started, it'll be Tuesdays and Thursdays as I tighten up how to do some other things. But like this episode, I started working on Monday. However, that was kind of how it started when I did the Sometime Show at first. There was so much to do and so much hadn't been refined into quicker methods that when it began, the Sometime Show was only once a week. And then by the time it ended, it was like 4 times a week, 3 to 4. Okay. Did mods haven't tagged me in anything, so it seems like everything's probably fine. We can move back onto the show at hand and move into the call-in section, which will require me to put on headphones so I can hear you, so I can hear people when they try to talk to me. I also did not set up. Ooh, that's a good point, Jimmy. Why didn't you fucking do that, you idiot? Idiot. But I wonder. Damn, and I don't have. Shut up. Just make sure to not have. By the way, we aren't going to be doing a bunch of like fan calls or anything or agreement calls. We'll have very limited lines for that. I'm here to discuss just differences, I guess. Shit. Yeah, so all of this stuff will be accounted for as well. And actually during the actual Sometime Show. So right now, if this was the actual Sometime Show, we would have like an ad playing or something. And by an ad, I mean like something encouraging you to become a patron or something that's like, hey, you should check out the Transatlantic Call-In Show. It's every whatever. Little things that run between segments so that I can get to the next thing. All right. We'll bring this over here since it's going to be necessary. We'll let people see. I really am very attached to the idea of having as clean a desk as possible, minimizing the visual elements in the foreground as possible when we do the actual show also. And feel free, by the way, you can send super chats of other things. Any super chat that has SQD on it, I'll still read, even if it's not answering the question directly. It's just that actually identifying, especially the ones that were during that period of time before, would have been harder. Oh, did I leave everybody on hold music I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave y'all on hold music. That was a mean thing to do. Let's try talking to John in California. John in California, you're on the line with Jimmy Snow. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Excellent. What did you call about?
Well, initially I called about police violence, but I think I disagree with you on guns.
Go for it.
So I don't think that our problem is with an over-manufacturing of guns, although it is a concern. I think our problem is with wealth inequality, because we've had a lot of guns in our country for a long time, but the problem with shootings as a cultural phenomenon, it really only started to ratchet up like after Reagan. So I think that although guns are a problem, and largely the mass shooting events are not even the majority of gun deaths. That's, I think, suicides. But like, I think harping on guns as the issue, like, it only costs the Democratic Party political points, and it doesn't really address the main problem, which is the social instability of wealth inequality.
Cool. So a few things. One, I haven't harped on it as the problem. I harped on it as a main problem, and one that is much easier to solve while not being easy to solve at all than the other problems that are systemic and the other issue. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask a little bit here. That are also systemic and a problem and much further away from being able to solve, like fixing brains and the like. As far as the point about the gun problem has been ramped up more since Reagan, that's for multiple reasons, and a lot of it has to do with the expansion of media, the expansion of information, the ability to get seen, and these are problems that are not solved by solving wealth inequality. But also on top of that, it is the types of guns which are available, the war machine style guns which are available, that is newer also since that period of time. And also the population has grown and people have been being packed in more to smaller spaces. And so it is also now easier to figure out where would be a good target, figure out what sort of security things you would have to worry about, being able to do, because of the access of media information, as much research as you want to maximize it. And we have seen that many of the people who have done it so far have been meticulous. And then you have a guarantee, essentially, of some level of infamy, which is also a problem. And those issues are all issues that are, in my opinion, actually harder to solve than saying you don't get to have guns that are built to kill many people, specifically in short periods of time. However, I'm also acknowledging that I have those types of guns because I acknowledge that Pandora's box is open, and whether or not I think we should close it, I don't think we will close it. So it is sort of the world we live in, and now we have to figure out what to do from here.
I mean, I'm much less interested in like hypocrisy arguments of, oh, you have the guns that you're railing against, because no one is convinced by hypocrisy arguments. I would just say that the majority of gun deaths, the vast majority of gun deaths, are from handguns. And any sort of policy to address like assault style weapons or militarized weapons won't actually be addressing the majority of gun deaths.
Yes, you're speaking specifically to suicides.
Yes.
And I agree that that is not going to be solved by the gun ban. But as far as going, so we have to solve the mental health crisis and ignore how much could be solved if we could take guns away. And by the way, we can look out across the world and look at statistics of both places who had guns that then didn't or didn't have access to as much, and how that changed their personal violence occurrence. And we can look out and see how treating mental health does reduce those things. And again, the one is easier than the other. But once more, I'm only speaking in a sort of idealistic way. I'm not advocating for a specific policy because I don't think it's possible. In fact, at this point, I think actually a real movement that put in any danger, guns in any actual real danger of being taken away, would probably result in a great many more gun deaths than would have happened in a few decades of that ban.
Well, isn't that a contradiction? Like, didn't you say it would be easier to address guns than the social problems that lead to people using their guns for the sensational media coverage, whatever else?
Yes, I still
isn't that more difficult, I still think it's because of American culture.
I still think it would be easier to do. No, I don't think that's. I think what you're not then grasping is how complicated I find those other things to be. I think we will eventually get to them, by the way. The mental health crisis is going to be solved, though, by incredible advancements in medicine, because trusting people to go to therapy and all that sort of stuff is already failing. I'm hoping that through destigmatizing of therapy, and that stuff's going to improve as well, but also teaching society as a whole how to treat each other better and how to stop pretending that the internet is a real place and that anybody on the internet is a real person. They're caricatures of themselves. Those are going to be things that are minorly helpful. But in the meantime, there will be a day that mental health will, I hope, be easier to solve than the culture problem. But right now, that isn't the day.
So then, outside of suicide, you think that mental health is one of the issues that is leading to gun deaths?
Yes, I think that there is a mental health element to all of it, for sure. I think you have to have a mental health problem to think murdering a classroom full of kids is fine. If we're talking about gun massacres, go ahead.
I haven't seen any data that shows that to be necessarily the case. I'm open to looking at it, but I haven't seen anything that says that's a connection, more than I've seen that social ills, poverty, wealth inequality, those things are what are driving the more sensational mass gun events. Those
aren't exclusive, those two things. I also agree that they happen more in those societies, or not those societies, in those groups, and you can expect them more out of those groups. However, There is plenty, by the way, of information on people who commit mass murder. I'm surprised that this is something that you aren't. Well, I won't make this about you and what you've consumed, but going with the extreme examples, you're aware Adam Lanza was an extremely fucked up guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I want to be clear. I am not super familiar with the names of different people who've done mass shooting events. It's just, I was going to talk to you about police stuff. It's not like I've prepared for a gun debate or anything.
All right, let's do the police stuff then.
Yeah. Oh, well, we agree on police stuff. I was just going to say initially that I had a discussion with my wife earlier today where she was talking about, these rioters and they need to stop. And my point to that was, we spend so much time talking about what rioters should or shouldn't do and what is or isn't against the law, but we don't spend enough time talking about what leads people to riot. Yeah. And this is one of like Martin Luther King Jr.'s like big arguments is that if you only focus on the outcomes of social ills, that being rioting, and not actually address those, you just sort of lead to a ramping up of the response, the militarization of police, and the clashes with the people who are most in need of services to address it. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
switched topics, but I knew we would just agree.
But yeah, most of the shit surrounding that too is in itself propaganda. It is look very much at this thing, these isolated incidents, these small things that might happen during a protest, that might happen during what's being called a riot, and let's lose completely the actual main points of exploitation, of murder, of the things that are coming that are actually causing the protests in the first place. Let's go find the bad people, the evil people who aren't even necessarily ideologically aligned with the greater group, who basically see a fire and go, well, I'm going to take advantage of this. They see an opportunity because they're dog shit, and don't want to waste a tragedy. Let's focus on that and try and completely lose the rest of the plot. And it's interesting because then it seems like years later, a lot of people, as certain things come up, like about income inequality, they'll go like, oh, how could we have known? No one saw this problem coming. It's not like Occupy was talking about this shit years before it hit all-time highs of ridiculous and obscene standards. It's not like the people were already protesting about this, because all I remember was all the stories about how there are restaurants who are getting really messy because so many people are trying to use the bathroom there, and that's what we made the headlines. It's all stupid shit. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, John. Last point, and then I'm gonna let you
go. Okay. I guess I was gonna ask, did you see the video, the Mark Dial Eddie Irizarry shooting?
Like you, I'm not necessarily great with recalling names, but if it was in the
most recent one in Philadelphia.
Yes. Okay. I'm familiar. Well, I saw it, and I saw that there are protests going on because of it. Because there was go ahead.
Yeah, they let the police officer go who shot the guy with really no provocation or reason to.
Yeah.
And now they've arrested up to 50 people who are upset that happened. And I guess that's my last point.
That was the kid in the car, right?
What was that?
Was that the kid in the car? I'm trying to make sure I have my recent police murders in order.
No, he was a 27-year-old.
Was he right? Was he running, or was he 20? I'm not using the word kid mean anything meaningful. Or was he sitting? Is this the one where they pull up, sitting in the car? Cop comes around quickly, starts shouting something, and then unloads an entire clip into him while he sat in his car.
He runs up to the car, screaming that he's going to fucking kill him, and then he starts unloading into him.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, piece of shit. I don't believe in the death penalty, but that doesn't mean that I don't think some people have earned to die. And if I could think of a just way that never could be abused or have a mistake made, that he wouldn't be not on the list of what I think the government should do in that case. But unfortunately, I can't support a death penalty. This is one of those nuanced things that come up from time to time. Like I've said this about massacres and stuff in the past before. The general position of that the government can't have a death penalty and responsibly, that we can't give the government the ability to kill its own citizens and that not be abused. And if it's abused even once, it being too many, gets lost in people going, so you don't think so-and-so deserves to die, which is not at all the same position.
Yep, right there with you, man.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks, John.
Yep, thanks a lot.
See ya. Yeah, I wish I had my shortcuts. Also, sorry if any of you heard my phone notification go off there a bit ago. I think it is silenced now. Kevin in Wisconsin apparently wants to apologize for something, but honestly, it probably doesn't. Kevin, I'll tell you this right now. I don't remember whatever it is you're apologizing for. I don't hold on to things, but you can go ahead and tell me what's up.
Hey, yeah, Jimmy. Hey, so the other day I called and talked to Shannon and Will, talked to them about shit that happened to my brother 20 years ago, and in that conversation, I accidentally strawmanned your argument about capital punishment and towards rapists and all that, and I mistakenly said that it doesn't matter, but it sounds like you remember. I just wanted to say that I went back and watched the tape, and you were right. I did strawman your argument, and I do apologize for that.
Yeah, and so
I also wanted to.
Well, here, give me just a second, because it's been strawman several times in comments too. So I want to clarify it, because if it's strawman that often, sometimes that means that the communicator is responsible, and sometimes not. Sometimes it's because people are so conditioned to be listening for a specific thing. But I'll just say the position was, the thing that people had a problem with me saying was, if in a hypothetical, a man kills his daughter's rapist and is on trial for murder, I had said that I would vote to convict if that was proven to have happened for the murder. Now, there was a few things, if I was in that thing. And basically, the point isn't actually about whether or not I think it's okay that he killed his daughter's rapist. Because as I mentioned in the, I think shortly thereafter, put in the same position, I, knowing the society we live in and knowing that we do not allow vigilante justice, would also probably end up killing my daughter's rapist. Like, I could see myself being in that situation, let alone being tried for it. So as far as the individual action goes, it wasn't a commentary on that. It was a commentary on, we live in a society, we cannot have a justice system that is built on vigilante justice or that excuses vigilante justice. That slope is way too slippery, and you can actually point at examples across the world of times where things like that have been allowed more, or even places that have more, like not the Philippines. Is it Turkey? I'm trying to remember. Erdogan. I think it was Erdogan. No, I'm thinking of somebody else now. There's one of these autocrats, had basically said, cops, you can start murdering people who have drugs or who are dealing drugs. And that level of shit. And it's basically to say, I would have to convict because they violated society's bounds on vigilante justice. It does not mean I wouldn't agree. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And by the way, in the actual position, I'm not a perfect person. Maybe I wouldn't vote to convict. Maybe I would go like, well, I have power here and I'm going to abuse it with this vote. And if it's one that needs a unanimous vote as opposed to just a majority, maybe I would abuse the power in the position. But we absolutely we cannot have a vigilante-based system. And as a society, when we decide what kind of society we want to build, when it comes to prison incarceration and people violating laws and stuff, it has to be built on where within reason, a hope to rehabilitate, to get reconciliation and rehabilitation instead of revenge. But there is a line to that reason as well. And if somebody is, for example, a serial offender, I have no problem with, you had said in your question to Shannon, so what should happen to a serial rapist? Life in prison. Right. I'm fine with that. Life fucking. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's tough. And it's not just a simple solution. I also think the way prison looks and what type of prisons we have needs to be largely reformed as well, but that's a different topic. Anything else? Sorry, Kevin, I kind of took over there. What were you going to say after that? No,
it's your show. No, and all that nuances is what I missed, because any when I was listening to it the first time, anytime someone could even possibly err on the side of defending a rapist. I just see red, and that's the one issue that I'm just fucking get mad as hell about. So Shannon and Will did a great job the other day, but I think I fucked up my point. The point I was trying to make the other day in one sentence, because I don't want to waste everybody else's time, is that as someone who's trying to learn to be the best version of myself, i.e. secular humanism, I have trouble seeing the humanity in a rapist. And I was hoping maybe I could pick your brain on that for like a minute or so and let you get on to other better calls. Because that was the point I was trying to make the other day, and I fucked it up and went off on a tangent I didn't mean to go off on.
No, I get it. I don't think we have to do that, though. I don't like it's hard because it depends on where you are. If you are the therapist in a prison system, yes, you have to at least act. And I know a lot of therapists in those scenarios have like, well, here's the system we know has to work. Here's what we have to do to at least try to rehabilitate. And yet they have internal conflict and are like, but if it was up to me, I'd stab the guy. Right. that sort of stuff does exist. So I don't think you have to sit and go, you try to support the type of society that you want to be a part of. And like it or not, basically, when it comes to every type of crime there is, and every type of bad person there is, most monsters start as victims. And that's not to let any of the victims off the hook. Not at all. The moment you do the thing, you are completely liable for the consequences of doing that thing. But it can create a world in which you start to build and have some compassion for the humanity of people, and compassion for, not by letting them off the hook, but by the compassion for the scenarios that put them in that spot in the first place. And so that's how you, without having a specific example, it's kind of like, don't go to the market when you're hungry. Have you ever heard that advice?
Yes.
Right. And so don't design the legal punishment system don't design the punishment system for a sex offender if you have been slighted by a sex offender and are thinking about that when you're doing it, because you're not going to be as just and as fair as one could be. But again, I have very visceral reactions to sex offenders generally. Right. I get it. It has to be something that as a society, we can take individual examples out of. We can take away and just go from a broad perspective. How should we do? What will have the best maximum outcome for society potentially? But as an individual, I'm not perfect. I don't have the ability to make that my actual, I don't have the ability to make that my actual personality, to go like, oh, I just found out that, and obviously there's different levels of sex offenders, and that does matter. And there are people who are fucked up and they do something once and they truly do reform, but I don't know that that's the most common thing. But obviously it is a scale, and you have to approach the scale differently. And so when you try to take yourself out and you're talking about how should we design a society is one thing, but what compassion you should feel for an individual person that their specific offense, and maybe that offense on top of that affects you or your family or someone I don't find that to be something we have to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
For sure. Anything else before I let you go?
Yeah, the only last question I had is, what do I need to say to get you to tell me to fuck off and hang up on me?
You're not impressed by how much effort clearly went into the production of this episode.
I mean, the sound is shit. The video production is absolute ass.
Yeah. All right. Well, do it better. You can go fuck yourself. Fuck, I put you in prison, guy. I think he said he wanted me to hang up on him. Or did he just want me to say, go fuck yourself? All right. Well, moving on to the next. Hey, lines are open if you want to call, if you have a point of disagreement, if you want to talk about God, you want to talk about theism, religion, whatever, or any of the topics of today. That number is 720-619-2288, 720-619-2288. Don't forget, at the end of the show, we will be doing the Super Chat question of the day and reading Super Chats that specifically begin with the letters SQD. You are welcome to make other points with that, but that's going to be the way that I'm able to find them most easily in the system I use that then allows me to put them on the screen. This is the Super Chat question of the day that I would like to hear from plenty of people on, because I do think there are some nuanced opinions on this. Will Donald Trump be the GOP nominee? Why or why not? Some people think he will because nothing could stop him. Some people think he won't because this 14th Amendment argument that has been being made recently, they think that there might be a chance that that will succeed. Some people wake up cashing in their bad luck. There are different reasons why people take different positions on this. I won't reveal mine yet, my position, I guess, until probably the end of that segment, but it's a complex one and would love to hear more of your opinions on it. Benjamin in Texas, that's where I am. You are on the line with Jimmy, and apparently you want to talk about apologetics.
Oh my gosh, Jimmy, it is an honor to meet you again. We talked a few months ago, actually, and, well, I do want to thank you for the last bit about the whole prison statistics bit, because I forgot how muddy those waters really are.
Yeah. And, very, very tough conversation to have and not hurt people's feelings.
Yeah. And, well, it did make me realize how absolutely messed up our prison system is. And
yeah, for sure.
It definitely needs a redo. But
yeah,
the last call I talked about apologetics and how, well, it's just giving sound bites to believers. And so regarding that, with the way apologetics is currently done as we see it in the modern day and age, do you think it helps Christianity, or in my opinion, shoots itself in the foot?
Does what help Christianity? To counter apologetics, or for are you asking if apologetics are helping Christianity, or if counter apologetics are helping Christianity?
Well, apologetics, with the way it's currently done, do the current speakers of apologetics help or hurt it with the things that they say?
It'll depend on what what you mean. If we're talking about Christianity at large, I don't think modern apologetics is actually doing Christianity much favors, because in a lot of ways it's going, well, here are our final arguments, and these are the ones, and even pointing out things like how far away these core arguments are from actually establishing a specific God, that most of their core arguments are really only establishing something like deism, or in some even worse cases, pantheism. I don't think it's doing them. You can almost get comfort in the vagueness of the thing you're not going to defend, because it just means so much to you. And, you don't have to put it to words, because, those people tend to be more obstinate. Whereas people who are engaging with high level apologetics have at least suggested that they value some type of truth. And while a lot of times their emotional attachment means that just because you've disabused them of those notions, they're not ready to just let it go. I do think those are the people that you see and go, this person, I've put numbers of years on people I've seen who defend apologetics for different institutions, especially current Mormons, where I go like, yeah, I know what he's saying, and I know how many years it takes to go from that to not Mormon anymore. And I keep most of those to myself, because you don't ever want them to hear it and then use it as I'm going to prove him wrong. It's anyway, at large, it isn't effective, but I think that they are very effective for their local communities and the people for whom they can basically count on their parasocial relationship with their congregation to win out over your non-relationship with other people who are going to say that doesn't make any sense.
Right. And so, as someone who has conversations with, like, say, his theistic parents, who are Messianic Jews and such. Oh, my condolences.
Me,
wait, how?
Messianic Judaism is one of the silliest Christian cults there is. It's just so it's got all of the stupidity but more silliness, which is almost more fun. Going to the dances can probably be fun. But no, it's a very, very silly branch of of Christianity that uses a lot of tactics of charismatic congregation style stuff while shitting on those concepts as well. And it's also, just to put plainly, it is, as a religion, anti-Semitic at its core. Like that's sort of its specific nature, to lie and misrepresent and to appropriate, usually for white Anglo-Saxon middle class people, appropriate Judaism for a Christian tradition. The whole thing's, I could talk about Messianic Judaism forever. Its origin story and how fucking culty that is, the person on the mountain and shit. The whole thing sucks.
Oh my goodness. I really didn't think people would think that much about it, but, well, regarding the misrepresentation part, one of the things that irks me the wrong way with some, not all apologists, is how they more often represent atheists instead of like atheists speaking for themselves, where we come from, in the rational street epistemology style I've learned. Trying to get used to that, but well, how do you respond to strawmanning and gaslighting from apologists?
I yell and I hang up on them. No, I'm just kidding. Sometimes, I mean, that is sometimes true. No, I find that I like to be I most often resort to sort of Socratic methods, sort of questioning yes or no, correct, incorrect style stuff. And then I like to point out sometimes, especially in a one-on-one, if I'm not doing it for an audience, it's quite different. And when I'm doing a one-on-one, usually my answer is, do you really think I believe that? Is that really and sometimes I'll challenge them. I'll go, all right, let's do a game. I'll take your side, you take my side. Let's switch sides and debate on behalf of the other side and see which one of us can more closely represent the other one's side. Because I can almost always nail. Like, they'll be very pedantic about little details. No, well, I think Jesus, I think H stands for Henry, or, stupid shit. Not literally that. That was a joke. But you didn't laugh, so I had to tell you it was a joke to give you the opportunity to fix it. Anyway, nope, still no. Okay, I will often do things like that where it's like, how is it that you are there's no way you haven't heard by now the rebuttals to things that you've just said, and yet you're still saying them. And so sometimes it's even more useful to go. In fact, I've been advocating for this and trying to do it more on the show. I really need to do it a lot more. It's harder to do with a co-host, and so I'll probably do it a lot more in my solo stuff. But and that's not a specific at any specific co-host. I know how the comments work around here. This is literally hard with any co-host. But to actually go and say, okay, you just asked me X. What do you think my answer is? And let them say it first. And see if they can accurately represent it. And then see if, as the conversation goes on and you do that exercise more, if they start at least getting closer to predicting the answers more correctly, because it forces them to think critically. It's almost an exercise that I've said for years. There are times with people I love and know from my past where it's like, I wish I could just give them my brain for a moment so they could run their neurons through the same system that understands how to filter out bad information and experience firsthand how different we evaluate the world. Because I feel like if they just tried it once, they would go, oh, this makes more sense. And they would stop being, it's almost that. It's almost doing that. It's almost forcing them to turn their brain onto how you think. And I think that that's more effective in one-on-one conversations, but you're not usually going to ever win those conversations, but you might be able to make them think hard about those conversations later.
Yeah, at least with the one-on-one people. The professional apologists, like, say, I'll name drop, I dare say, Sean McDowell, who did this sort of role play as an atheist thing in a Christian high school. And then, well, the whole debacle was just silly because, well, he was close, but at the same time, it's this inoculation tactic they kind of use to their fellow believers.
Yeah.
And it's painting me bad before I even say a word. And so
I get it. Have you read any books?
Yeah.
That have helped you with any of this, or have you checked out Street Epistemology on YouTube with Anthony Magnabosco?
not at the moment. I mean, yeah, I have read non-atheist books like, say, The Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism by Aron Ra, and that was
Sure.
the first book. But I definitely do need to get around to more books and such, like, say, Dave Farina's "Is This Wi-Fi Organic?" Because
I love
that's
Dave.
a pretty good book.
I'm trying to remember the name of this one book that I like, by a guy who. What's the name of the book? I think it was a book. Am I mixing it up with something else? There was a former pastor who, I know, I'll just ask Chat. Chat will know. There was a book by a former pastor who basically decided to live as an atheist for a year and become good at being an atheist. And at the end of the year, he decided to just stay an atheist. He was like, oh, well, turns out that's a specific book. I'm trying to remember what the name of that book was. Go ahead.
As someone who's has autism and is, has trouble like getting out words perfectly straight and end up tripping over myself, I've been reading a whole lot more books, having meaningful conversations, and trying to get my message across as nicely as I can. So these books do mean a lot for me. I still want to thank Aron Ra specifically for that first book, though.
I think maybe it wasn't a book. I think it's Ryan Bell. I've probably consumed so many of Ryan Bell's interviews with like Dan Barker and others that I probably in my head have mistaken it for. I just feel like I remember specific stories that seem very vivid, but I could be wrong. But anyway, Ryan Bell was the name of the person. And yeah, last thing is just that I recommend you check out Street Epistemology on YouTube by Anthony Magnabosco, because he's very good at modeling effective ways to have conversations with people who don't believe, and to at least have a conversation that'll at least feel respectful, and not just jumping all the way to, cliches and hurt feelings.
Yeah, not street preacher stuff. No.
Yeah, no. Street Epistemology, no. Anthony Magnabosco. Check him out.
All right. That will definitely be on my watch later.
Cool. Thank you, Benjamin. Anything else before I let you go?
That's about it. And well, how do I say this? 3 years as an unbeliever, and I'm still happy as ever. I don't regret change. I don't regret walking away from my past religion, as we've just discussed. So I'm definitely a whole lot better now.
You mentioned being autistic, and I do see that it is a very common experience for autistic people to just be generally happier after leaving religion, because they don't have to live their lives with so many contradictions and obviously fallaciously based rules and things that are not adequately justified. And there's something about it that's just mentally relaxing to not be religious when you do have such a rule oriented brain.
Yep. I started critically thinking a whole lot earlier, and only like 3 years ago did I really commit to it and see it for myself.
Cool. Good.
But yep, that's about it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the good work you do. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Benjamin.
Stay safe out there, Jimmy. All right. Bye.
See ya. It is occurring to me that as far as getting when the Sometime Show fully launches in November, there's going to be a little more tests and promo things in the meantime. But when it launches in November, it will probably have to run a little while to get enough hate watchers. Because it's occurring to me that if I'm doing a solid hour or more of not taking calls, getting people to stick around through that will mean you have to have gathered some hate watchers if you're wanting the calls with significant conflict to call in. But I don't know. Anyway, Brennan in Australia. Brennan, you're on the line with Jimmy Snow. How are you?
Can you hear me fine? Because I'm playing a game in the background.
I hear you fine. What are you saying? You're getting background what?
No. What I'm saying is I'm playing a game in the background.
Oh,
so
got
can
it.
You hear me fine?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Can you say? Good. My thing is, as I mentioned about, as I mentioned, I'm in a Catholic university, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and to be clear, I'm not studying anything related to theology whatsoever. But it was like one time during break, I actually did talk with one of the people from the theology department, and they actually said something really, really actually quite sad to me, which was ultimately that because they were talking about life purpose, right?
Mhm.
Because they were like saying why they believe in God and religion, and they said something. And the thing they said that's of relevance here is they said, if God was not to be shown not to be true, then life would have no purpose. And my response simply was that if then that has no purpose, you define your own purpose in life and push forward. And the reaction to that is what was most interesting, and that was quite simply put that they defined humans seeking their own value as lesser or inferior to finding value from God. And how common do you think that sort of mentality is?
Yeah, so there's a couple of thoughts I have on this. Hang on, I'm sending a message off to one of my mods.
I think take your time.
No, yeah, it's all good. But there's a couple of things about this that I definitely have to say. I'm just gonna finish it and then I'll respond. So as far as this whole, like, yeah, there will be no purpose without God, it's basically a practice in self-infantilization, basically turning yourself into an actual child. And I find it really fucking sad that religious people fall for this so across the board with other things. I mean, we see the sort of like, keep your brain very adolescent all the time. Don't talk directly about sex. Don't be open about things that everybody does. Don't be open about, and so that's already a theme within religion. But within Christianity, this concept of when you are a baby or when you are a child, you really don't have a lot of ways to operate without instructions from others. But the way it's supposed to work, the way humans are supposed to work, is that you're supposed to be able to build up some amount of skill set, some amount of ability to actually interact with the world, some amount of being able to detect when somebody's lying to you. Obviously, that's not perfect. People are lying all the time, but some ability to be able to build up some self-protection skills. And the conclusion of that should be, okay, now that through instruction, people have armed me with a lot of weapons and a lot of tools and a lot of ways to figure my own way forward, I should now figure my own way forward. And yet there is this religious idea of, no, you shouldn't. You should stay, quote unquote, meek. You should be a child. You should let your purpose and actions be dictated by other people. And it doesn't mean that even if you aren't religious, it doesn't mean that if you decide you want to have a purpose that you're not going to interact with people who are instructors or who can show you better ways, but that you'll at least know you're there because that's where you want to be. And presumably you'll still have more independence than this average, like, shut up and submit to the will of God. And that is what your purpose is, that your purpose comes as a prescription, not as a description. And so, yeah, it is very, very sad because it's basically committing to, if I was a more condescending person, I know it's hard to conceptualize how I would be more condescending, but if I was a more condescending person and somebody said that to me, oh, the wee little baby needs someone to pick his puppies for him. Have you not learned to fucking, like, figure your shit out? Like, how is that more appealing to just, I don't know, maybe there are people who their brains just aren't really curious. Maybe there are people who really just prefer to be like a dog with a consistent schedule, a set of commands, and a set of expectations. But like a trained dog, I should say. I cannot find that remotely satisfying. And I think that most of the people who express it are just expressing it as a cliche with no actual depth. And I even think that there's probably a significant amount of envy amongst many of them for the people who it's like, I don't get to decide what I want to do with my life. I don't get to.
And also, the other part of this is, I do want to ask, how then do you deal with people who actually have that position? Because I honestly didn't know how to deal with it, because such an ideal to me is ludicrous. to basically diminish your own value to such a degree is absurd. and ultimately, yes, you are correct. People have teachers and mentors in which they can listen to and follow. You are correct on that. I just find the whole religious aspect of submission even more insidious than normal. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the question of how I deal, each individual is different, but a lot of times I will ask people about their normal day, their normal routine and stuff, and point out just how much, and it is for most people, the absolute majority of their life, most people aren't actually living for their religion, even amongst the religious. They just have these rituals of things that they go, right, but I got to go do my check-in because I got to cover my bases. And so from the onset, like, people are becoming artists and musicians and working jobs and doing all types of things that have nothing to do with God or glorifying God. Nobody's feeling particularly excited when they get a raise at work because it'll be able to increase the amount of tithing they can contribute. They're interested in how that affects the security of their life and shit. And so a lot of times I'll either point that out or actually ask them about their life and their days and the things that are happening, and assert that they actually don't get most of their purpose from God. What they're mistaking for purpose is, again, a submission of thought that I'm going to still go through my life and I'm going to have a Pokemon card collection if I want. And that has no regard for God or whatever. But then on Sundays, I'm going to go check in with my community and have that little bit of community niceness. And I don't know. It's just all shallow bullshit to me.
And that's basically everything I wanted to talk about. And there's nothing else, because in terms of like American politics, I can't talk about that since I'm not American.
Sure. It's all good. I mean, what we do here obviously does affect you. I hope that we haven't fucked you all too much, but for sure.
Sure. Sure, can just cancel me on your end because I'm currently
sure. Bye, Brandon.
Off the screen. Cancel me on your end.
Yeah, no worries. See ya. Lines are still open, but I as far as new calls go, I'm only going to take somebody who has some significant point of disagreement, especially if it's about God or if it was about any of the topics. I'm even going to send that note to the mod. Calls here out. But if there's none, then we will do super chats after that. And actually, we've gotten to the point too, since I'm not doing the monologue anymore, pretty much any super chat of $5 or more will still read. And I should be able to get to easily enough because it's now during the part where I can actually monitor the computer and I'm not, working with a teleprompter and talking. It's very weird how people actually, yeah, I have a little tiny mini rant. It's very weird how people treat the concept of reading a script off of a teleprompter as shitty. Because on my end, I work way harder on the episodes that I write out, that I think about. Even the jokes. I mean, the jokes are so much better. Do you guys remember that one about Target and then the GPS and Tennessee people being too fucking stupid to work their navigation systems? Anyway, fucking so good. Those jokes are solid. Dr. Dummy D, the daughter diddler. Yeah, I'm revisiting them, and this is low-class horse shit. Not a professional. Anyway, I work way harder on those. And it is very funny how people will, in comments especially, they'll shit on, like, I'm fucking word, man. Just always talk off the top of your head. You'll never sound like an idiot. I talk off the top of my head a lot, and I've gotten pretty good at often not sounding like an idiot, but sometimes I like to sound like I have meaningful thoughts when I think things through a little bit. This is very, very strange to me. Someone said live streaming is so much easier than prepared comments. Script writing is a time sink. Script writing is a time sink. However, this is a live stream. So I think you mean free form content, I think is probably the word you meant. And I realize I'm probably being pedantic because I recognize what you mean, but I way prefer it. I way prefer, as far as the content, obviously I do more non-scripted stuff and I'm being non-scripted with you right now. But I do very much, to the person just saying God exists. If you're just going to be banned unless you call in. Call in. Tell me how you know God exists. That's what I want to hear. 720-619-2288. All that information should be in the description. Hey, will somebody put a link back to my personal channel in the chat again? I'm going to copy that into the description right now as we take this next call. If one of the mods would do that for me, please. I think I will remember. In the meantime, let me see if I have the shortcut ready. I don't think I do. Yeah, 720-619-2288. There's also a web link. All that should be in the live chat. Call in. Don't just yell that God is real. God is real. I just can't prove it. God is real. Ba-doop, ba-doop, ba-doo-doo. Let's talk to Gene in Texas. Gene, you're on the line with Jimmy Snow.
Hello, Jimmy.
Hello, hello.
What I'd like to talk. Hello. What I'd like to talk about is, I guess it was about 20 years ago. I was about to make a choice about something, and something, I don't know why it dawned on me at that time, but it did. I was like, oh my gosh, am I actually even really making a choice? Because it seemed to me at that time that all of my choices, or perceived choices, were dependent upon millions of variables and circumstances since birth up to that moment. And good examples, of course, are like, I didn't decide where I was born, who my parents were going to be, who my siblings were going to be, so on and so forth. Well, there's no free will there. And then, of course, there's indoctrination. Didn't decide to be indoctrinated either. Luckily, I managed to dodge that due to a interesting circumstance, and I never believed. But if it weren't for that circumstance, chances are I'd be as silly as the rest of my family.
Sure. So are you basically are you curious about what my position on free will is?
Indeed.
Yeah. So as far as the concept of choice, there's a little bit of, it's not that we don't have choices. It's that it may be the case we were never going to make any other choice than the choice we made. That was, and that's sort of my position, that basically everything that's happening was set in motion to happen basically at the moment of the Big Bang, or for all I know about it, before that. Everything is chemical reactions and biology and physics. When it even comes to your own mind and your own brain, you think about things like just saying a sentence, for example. If I say the sentence, I want to have ice cream, generally most people will agree right before you say each word or group of words, in your head, you've decided to say that word or group of words. So out loud, you conjure up, I want to have ice cream. And then in your head, you conjure right before that, you decided, I want to have ice cream. But then the question becomes, where did those words themselves come from? If saying it out loud was conjured by the thought, how was the thought conjured? And nobody, I find, thinks that it's magic. I guess in some ways, maybe religious people. But no one really thinks that like, oh, it magically came up, because there seems to always be some relevance. When you're going to say, I want to have ice cream, at that time, you're probably 1, hungry, 2, experience some level of sugar craving, whatever. And there's a lot of pieces that come into it. So as far as you conjure the words out loud, you conjure them as a thought. What comes before the thought? And it's your neurons firing. It's running through memories. It's running through references. It's running through just even the concept of you've been introduced to ice cream, so you're craving ice cream. You never crave a food that you've never heard of. And it's from that level, I'm very much a universal determinist. It is. I think that the universe was set to do whatever. It does not absolve anybody of anything, because one, we can't prove it. We can't prove whether or not we actually had a choice to do the things we were doing. However, we still had the experience of making the choice. Just because the time was set in the way it was going to happen doesn't mean we didn't make the choice. I punched you in the nose or I didn't. And the consequences still follow, whether or not the choices to issue those consequences are a choice or not. And so because every element, if there is no free will, also lacks free will, a universe without free will and a universe with free will won't look any different. And that's sort of where I exist.
And I totally agree with you, by the way, because I realize I don't really know the truth on this. That's what it seems to me to be the case. I don't know that I could ever have any evidence to show that there's never a choice I've made that wasn't in some way actual free will.
Yeah.
Also, but the ramifications for me have been this. I have found I'm more understanding of people whose actions I don't really care for. And but I have found that I don't have to accept them
Right.
those actions.
Right.
I just am more understanding now, and it's easier for me to forgive them somewhat.
To me, I think
I still have the knee-jerk reaction. Go ahead.
It's anybody who, even people who do believe in free will, I think that should still be a conclusion people come to, because regardless of whether or not you think the universe put things into motion or whatever, doesn't matter. You can prove definitively that there are very correlating circumstances that make a person's life more or less likely to go a certain direction. And so I've talked about this too. I have more empathy or sympathy more often for people who I don't care for as people. And I will even at times pity, feel sad for people who have been terrible to me, because I will think about where that came from. I have a relationship from my past that was really bad, that came from clearly stuff from my partner's past and people in my partner's past who were very similarly bad to them. And it makes you, sometimes it tempts you to forgive people. I resist that urge in any meaningful way. Forgive as in, I don't need to stew on it or whatever, but I'm not going to treat you as though you didn't do that to me. We're not getting back together, for example.
Right.
But yeah, it's whether or not a person believes in free will or not, you have to accept, because there's so much data on it, that there are things which influences a person's personality and outcomes in their life. People born into poverty are more likely to be criminals, because that is just a demographic reality that it's, in a lot of ways, it's because that's the choices they have. That's the options that they have, but also because there is a system that is built against them that goes, either steal and lie and cheat the way that people who are rich also are doing, but in ways we've made legal, or starve to death. And so you see this across the world too. Drought and famine tend to also result in religious extremism. It's not a coincidence that the most fundamentalist, terroristic religious people come from really dry, hot places more often, that demographic seems consistent. And so, yeah, it can, it's, you can't deny that there is clearly, and this is why too, I don't understand how personally people take a lot of stuff that isn't directed at them, or isn't actually going out to try and make a person's life worse. The life is short to be thinking about anybody else's life if you don't have to, and fucking you really do not know anybody. And there is an entire industry, and it's very popular on YouTube, of people lying and pretending to know people. I've both been a perpetuator and a victim of that system in the past, and I'm sad for both of those things. And it's fucking break free, rise above, do science.
Wow. Well, I do like what you said, and I totally agree with, it's a moot point, really. Whether or not there's free will or there isn't, it's a good state to be in.
Yeah.
The understanding thing.
And everybody at some level understands, because anytime they are perceived as doing something bad, everyone always feels like they were misunderstood, or you don't no, but you don't get this. And everyone internalizes this for themselves. Everybody wants a welfare program to exist that covers when they lose their job. And yet a lot of people in those scenarios have a feeling that all these other people are part of these other groups. There's some reason that is different, that they should be excluded from that understanding or that welfare program or whatever else. It's really sad and stupid. But anything else before I'm going to do one more call after you, and I got a theist waiting. Anything else before I let you go, Gene?
Okay. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks for chatting.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, good topic. See ya. Yeah, I like the topic of determinism, free will, all of that jazz. 1 second, just get another thing ready, because once again my little board shortcuts where I can just quickly knock which caller is on the line and stuff I don't have set up today. It was out of short-sightedness, and for real, I was working on the show right up till the moment that I came on there. So we're going to take, it's funny too, because I was thinking about what I just said about how we're going to need hate caller or hate watchers. But then also I recognize that a lot of times theists don't even start calling for the first 45 minutes to an hour of like the Sunday show. So as long as I'm past that, I got to figure out what the average time is and try and keep my scripted segments in that period of time. But, we can test this now because we've got an theist on the line, so we'll pick him up. Alexander, also in Texas. A lot of Texas callers tonight. I'm a Texas person. Oh, did I accidentally put up the... Sorry, I've put up the wrong thing here. Alexander in Texas, you are on the line with Jimmy Snow. How are you doing, Alexander?
What's up, Timmy? Is it Jimmy or Timmy?
Jimmy with a J.
Oh, how's it going, man?
It's going. Hey,
yeah,
let me ask you a quick question before we get started on the topic. Did you watch the first half of the show?
No, I've been here for about 20 minutes, and I was just about to say, did I miss something important? Is that why you asked?
No. I was just curious whether or not, because I was talking about how the first half of the show is scripted, and I was basically covering some news and political stuff. And so I was curious, because we were just talking about it, whether or not you were calling in because you found the show during the call-in portion, or if you watched the first half and we're going to be responding to anything from the first half. And it's all good. It was just for curiosity. Anyway, go ahead.
Sorry. Actually, it was just interesting. It was just algorithm basis. I just saw your show, or your live stream, and so I always wanted to call Atheist Experience. Also, before I mentioned, if I stutter or anything, I've never spoken publicly, less on a live stream. So if I don't get my thoughts together, just bear with me. But yeah, basically, I wanted to call to ask you what best explains the fine order, not only in the world but the universe, because we definitely have scientific proof beyond anything that the universe is so fine-tuned beyond belief.
No, we don't.
That we can make. It's not fine-tuned?
The phrase fine-tuned suggests that something tuned it, that there was a tuner that put them into the positions. We can say, hey, for this to work, this has to work. And so we are observing the things that are present. We are looking out at the universe and we are observing and describing what we see. There has been no scientific establishment. And in fact, there wouldn't even be a scientific establishment because it's not really a scientific question. It's more of a philosophical, unless you actually had the tuner that you could then observe and do scientific experiments on. We look out at the universe and we describe what we see. We do not have an establishment that this is the only universe that exists. There could be a multiverse. We don't have an establishment that there aren't other universes that have different qualities that also result in life. Hang on a second. That also result in life. We don't have an establishment of a tuner. We don't have an establishment of any of that. But yes, we do have establishments of physical facts that seem to be unchanging, and even some understanding about how they are affected by other things and what rates exist, like speed of light and stuff. Go ahead, Alexander.
You said that we have physical facts that seem to be unchanging, like such.
The speed of light appears to be an unchanging. Well, I guess you should say the maximum speed of light, because they do sometimes slow photons down in fields and stuff. The maximum speed of light and the uninterrupted speed of light, the unimpressed upon speed of light, that seems to be a universal constant. There's tons of things like that. Boiling point of water at neutral altitude, 100 degrees Celsius.
Well, how you said that, we seem to see things in the universe that. Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you, because I mean, I say the consensus and cosmologists do agree that they can measure, like, how we can supposedly measure the age of the Earth. We can for sure measure with all the technology and scientific tools, like gravity, the pull of gravity, the matter, all the size of the planets, how they correlate with how they all function together, so it can be super, super balanced.
Get to the point of disagreement.
Something that I disagree with you saying that there's no evidence of this universe being fine-tuned. I mean,
no, but that's a different argument. We look out and we do exist. So we're in a universe. We only know of the one. We don't know if there's many others. So we exist. So the only way we can exist is in a universe which accommodates our existence. We already know we exist. So now we look out and we describe the things we find, like you said, things like gravity, things like, and if those things weren't that way, we wouldn't exist. The fine-tuning argument, saying that things were fine-tuned, is to say that something preceded all of that and dialed those values in. That is not something we know. That is not something we have established and is not a scientific fact.
I agree.
But that's what fine-tuning means. You realize that, right?
Okay, but what's the best alternative for that explanation? Like, could we just say that when it blew up, however it blew up, that all those constants just perfectly align? Because you have to remember, you have to like think, like, if one of those stages falls apart, then I think everything falls apart. So this universe will not have been able to evolve, because at the singularity point, everything has
you're jumping ahead. You're jumping ahead because you asked a question and then you made a point after. So I'm gonna let me address the question and the point that you just made to try and support it. The best answer is the honest answer. And so right now, the best answer is the actual one we have evidence for, which is we don't know. Now, when you say when everything exploded, if after everything exploded, the things were different, all of those laws of physics, all of those things those things that are constant, those constants were present in the universe during the explosions. The only moments we don't know about are if anything preceded the Big Bang, or you mentioned the singularity. If anything preceded that, we don't know what the physics were then. We don't know if before even makes any sense, because time is a function of the universe, and time has actually only existed since the Big Bang. And so if you say before, you're indicating to time which hadn't existed yet, but there might be a concept of time. Maybe time existed in some other way and some other thing. The correct answer is the honest one. We don't know whether or not there is a fine tuner or not, but nothing indicates that there was. A universe with people can only have the qualities that of a universe which sustains people. By the way, you had mentioned if you just change one thing, it all falls apart. We don't even know that. There may be other universes with changing the speed of light, for example, a little bit would change potentially our universe, and maybe we humans wouldn't exist, but some other world that also had a difference in distance from its sun, though I don't think that would be necessarily a determining factor, but that had some other difference to accommodate for it, has the potential to still exist. We can't say ours is the only universe that works, because we've never examined another universe to compare it to.
Okay, so and with that, you can say that in another range of the universe, there could be some constants that could make us evolve pertaining to those constants, not our constants right now. So we would be able to survive under those things.
Who knows? Again, these are hypotheticals. This is all I'm saying is we haven't established any of those things. And the thing that people say where they love that one. There's another one people love where they'll say if we were just a little bit closer to the sun, we'd burn up. And if we were a little bit further away, we would freeze. Have you heard that one?
Yeah, of course. I mean, what are the odds of that though?
No, the odds are zero. Wait, Alexander, you have heard that one, and are you under the impression that that is true? Because you just responded as though you think that's true.
No, I've looked into the work. I mean, I've tried to just
hang on, Alexander. Don't try and get ahead. Just answer the question. Are you under the impression that if we were a little bit closer, we would burn up, and if we were a little bit further, we would freeze? Because you answered as though you were. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. That is not even close to true. Not only do you want to know how we know it's not true? Because in a year, we change distances constantly. The orbit of Earth around the sun is an elliptical. It's not a circle. So we literally at parts of the year are closer and parts of the year further away. But because of the distribution of the sun and the distribution of light and solar energy, it isn't actually enough to change stuff that much. In fact, it has less effect on the weather than the tilt of the Earth, which is what causes the seasons.
Why is every scientist saying that though, even atheists?
No, they aren't. That's not a single scientist says that. That is a common colloquialism made up by religious people. It isn't true. It's not in any science book. It's not professed by any scientist. The idea that if we were a little bit further or a little bit closer, everything would be gone is literally untrue. You do know that we're trying to set up for life on Mars, and that we can actually look through history or look through, we can actually do science to determine what Mars was like and determine that there was a time Mars was actually more habitable.
What about the mass?
What's that?
About the mass of the planets, the mass of the sun, the mass of the planets, the mass of the planets, the mass of the sun.
Okay.
The gravity pull of the sun, gravity pull of the planets.
Yes.
Okay, so we have one thing that may be, okay, that you could say, oh, it's not even true, like we could still survive. Okay, but knowing that there's still a lot of constants that are very, very, on edge to be able to, for us to survive at least in the solar system. What about those? Like, are those untrue then? Like, are those not real? Like,
no, the constants are real. We haven't established a tuner, which you already agreed with. We have never scientifically proven that anyone made those constants constant, that it happened by anything that wasn't a natural process or that it was put there by a god. What?
It seems very rational for me to just accept, to just assume that, okay, this whole vast universe just poofed and everything just came into at least not very fine-tuned, but
do you think that's what I believe? Fine-tuned. This universe just poofed?
No, not poofed. Just, a Big Bang, or you said the alternative could be other universes?
Do you not believe in the Big Bang?
Of course.
Wait. So you do believe in the Big Bang, and so the Big Bang isn't what's crazy to you.
I just know who banged it.
No, you believe you know who banged it. You don't know who banged it. Knowledge is demonstrable. If you knew who banged it, you could demonstrate it. You'd be able to prove it. You believe someone banged it. What's that?
You can't put it under a test tube. You can't put.
Yeah, so you can't know it.
Under a test tube.
You're saying a colloquialism for you can't demonstrate it or you can't prove it. Therefore, you can't know it. You can believe it, but knowledge is demonstrable. Say that again. You broke out.
Because you can't know. Also, you can't put your trust on a metaverse or what's it called? Not a metaverse. It's not
a multiverse.
On a multiverse.
Right. Yeah. When did I do that?
You can't prove it.
When did I put my trust in the multiverse?
Well, not your trust, but an alternative. My bad. I didn't put one trust. But.
In fact, all I did was propose. I used the word hypothetically or hypothetical, and I also, as an example, offered. We don't know what other universes are like because we don't even know if there are other universes. But one could hypothesize of an alternate universe where you could change some of the constants and potentially types of life could still exist. We simply don't know. We only have ours to observe.
Right.
So all
right, I'm going to just say this, and it's going to be my final conclusion. This is going to be my case as to why I lead more into theism than not, okay?
Go for it.
So basically, based on the universe constants being, you may not say we don't really need the sun to be this close or whatever to survive. Okay, whatever.
No. I don't say that. That's an established fact. Don't say it like I just offered that as a belief. Literally tomorrow. Hang on. Tomorrow, Alexander, I need you to either tell me you accept this or not, because this is an established thing. Because I don't know how to proceed if you can't see an established fact. Do you know? Is the orbit of the Earth a perfect circle, or is it an elliptical?
It's like an oval.
Yes, right. So when you are on the short sides, you are closer to the sun than during the periods where you are on the long sides, correct? Because that's how an oval works. Yeah. Right. So sometimes during the part of the year where we are on the short sides, we are closer. And during on the part of the year where we are on the long sides, we are further away. Right?
Right.
So you accept that colloquialism, if we changed our distance from the sun, everything would die. That isn't true because we change our distance from the sun literally every day. You accept that, correct?
I accept that.
Okay, good. Because the way you said you say this, it's an established fact that you can easily think through in your head. That's why I brought it up.
All right. So, okay. Fair enough. So my collective reasoning, or, to believe more on a theist or on a God, is basically a lot of scholars have attested of Jesus being real, and whether you believe that he's not or he is, based on him having a historical record, based on the rationality of the inner complexity of like just molecules just forming all together without any design, right? Of like we can get evolution or whatever, and on top of that, with a cosmological order, it just seems to me that we have not only historical like validity, and you can say, well, the Gospels weren't true and whatever, but I mean, there's a lot.
I sure can, and I do.
Okay, but I mean, would you accept that like 70% do believe that it's valid? Like,
I don't commit fallacies like argument ad populum. And by the way, what you're trying to represent is the historicity argument, the concept of mythicism versus non. I am not a mythicist. I don't say Jesus Christ did not exist for sure. I also don't say Jesus Christ did exist for sure. Scholarly consensus as Jesus existing as a historical fact, first of all, is not the same level of a scientific fact. You do not have to demonstrate or prove. You just go, there's enough here to say this is probably true. That's where you get scholarly consensus.
Yeah.
However, hang on.
I agree.
Scholarly consensus does not mean that Jesus Christ existed and the things he is reported to have done in the New Testament also happened. Whether or not Darwin existed does not affect whether or not evolution is true or the stories around what was happening in the Galapagos are true. Whether or not the facts bear out, that's what determines if it's true or not. So even if Alexander, I will, for the sake of argument, say Jesus exists. Prove he was resurrected. Then once you prove he was resurrected, prove he was resurrected because he was the Son of God. Prove that any of his origin is divine. Prove that this whole thing about heaven and hell is actually legitimate. These are all things you cannot prove, even if I give you Jesus existed.
But you can't prove that, like, well, I mean, because that's history. You can't prove
it isn't.
Science.
It isn't even history. Jesus as a figure is history. The resurrection is not a historical event.
But let's just say that, like, there did in fact happen, like, was a resurrection. The gospel, the disciples just really wanted to put that across to the point where they led to death.
Why would I accept that?
Extreme rules.
Wait, to the point that they were willing to die for it? Am I going to become a Mormon now? People were willing to die for Joseph Smith. Again, become a Mormon again? Am I going to become a Muslim? People die still for Muhammad.
Yeah, but that's under a different psychological set of rules.
No, it isn't. It's oh my God, they're so similar. It's ridiculous. I don't even know what you even think you mean, but there isn't anything significant from the way that is currently practiced, the way that Islam is currently practiced, that you can point to and go, well, there's no parallels to that in Christianity.
But I have to give you, for Paul to like become a Christian after him killing Christians, for the disciples to literally martyr themselves into the point of dying and to excruciating death
means nothing, because there are parallel examples of people converting to lies and dying for lies.
And then evolution being ridiculous for, like, just to say that all biological
evolution is an established fact.
That's not.
Yes, it is.
Actually not.
Yes, it is. How is it not?
Because the flood proves in the land.
The flood didn't happen. The flood didn't happen. Alexander, are you a young Earth creationist?
Then hang on. Then how can fossil records show that fish were eating another fish? Like, that doesn't happen in evolution. That means
how can fossil records show that fish eat other fish? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
I can watch animals eat other animals now. I can watch fish eat other fish now. They're different species of fish. I could go eat a gorilla right now. What are you talking about?
No, but but in for you to become a skeletal, like a fossil, like where you just like, let's say like you get trapped under a huge amount of dirt, right, while you were eating something.
It's not just that. You're talking about flash fossilization. You need very, very specific conditions for it to happen. And by the way, the number of fossils there are compared to the number of animals that ever lived, it's ridiculous. It's way, way below 1%. But go on.
I mean, there's a lot of like, okay, are you familiar with Dr. James Tour?
Wait, yes, I'm familiar with Tour. He is an idiot, and he's been debunked by a friend of the show, by the way, Dave Farina, many times. James Tour is a moron. And by the way, that little groan you're doing where you're being condescending is a little ironic, since you were asked to defend the flood and said fish eat other fish. Are you ever going to get around to defending the actual flood?
Well, I can't, like, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to just like set some points where in the land, in some parts of the land, there seems to be a lot of evidence of erosion and large.
Yes, there's water on the planet. That's not a mystery. You can literally go down through the layers. And yet, despite the fact that this massive flood happened, we only find the creatures in the layers we expect them to find, even though the water would have moved them around. You'd have found animals that were drowning in the wrong parts of the layers, in the wrong layers. And yet they're also dated the same. It's so weird to be intellectually condescended to by someone who at the beginning of this call didn't know that the Earth's orbit was elliptical. And who doesn't know that evolution is an established fact.
How do you get to the like the proof, or not? I wouldn't say proof, but like if.
How do you believe are you a young Earth creationist? How old do you think the Earth is?
Well, I believe science doesn't say anything. I believe scientists do. I believe that.
How old do you believe the Earth is, was the question.
About 7,000 or 8,000 years old.
You said you believed in the Big Bang.
Yeah.
The Big Bang's cosmic radiation that we observe, the early radiation that we look through telescopes. Shut up. We look through telescopes and we see radiation from it. That radiation is many more billion times years old. You believe the Earth is 7,000 to 8,000 years old, but you somehow say you believe in a Big Bang when these are completely conflicting things.
I wish I could look. I've heard a lot of people talk about the reasons why it seems like that. Especially scientists, and they have an explanation.
No, not scientists. Scientists do not have an explanation for how the universe could be 7,000 years old, but when we look through telescopes, we can see further away than 7,000 light years. We can, in fact, see millions and billions of light years away.
Scientists claimed a lot of years ago that supposedly these Neanderthal people were
Alexander, are you now trying to desperately prove that the Big Bang is wrong by pointing to another time that people you categorize as scientists said something was wrong when it turned out to be a pig's jaw that somebody was trying to get over on people?
Well, there's been a lot of,
Is that what you were doing? And how did we find out that it was a pig jaw?
Guys.
Alexander, how did we find out it was a pig jaw?
I don't know. But
by doing science. A person pretending to be good at science lied, and science uncovered his lie. So you want to sit here and go, well, billions of light years, that could be wrong because somebody was once wrong, and you point to an example where science was what fixed it, what fixed a human liar. The speed of light, the distance of the stars have been confirmed many times over by many people. The jaw was one dude. And you want to sit here and question why I would live in the I don't know position for something like, is there a fine tuner? I have no reason to believe there is. When you assert beliefs that are physically impossible, Alexander, who are you to talk down to anyone intellectually?
But Jimmy, you say that there's no reason to assume that there's a fine tuner.
Correct.
I mean, look at everything you look, man.
Look at the trees.
But,
Oh my God, the trees. I know how trees evolved.
You literally think that there was evolution had no direction. It was just all
correct.
Perfectly.
I believe evolution worked the way that it works.
So irrational.
No, it isn't, because Alexander, just because you don't understand the pressure of natural selection does not make it irrational to accept the established fact of evolution. By the way, you'll never win on this trying to talk over me thing. You will always lose. You're going to want to only wait for me to stop talking.
That's what blind people do.
Oh, that's what blind people do. So now you're just down to or cliches that don't matter at all. You have lost on every point that had anything relative to actual science. And so now you're going to go, I, who believe something so stupid at the beginning of this call, and have now said that I believe that the earth is 7,000 and 8,000 years old, I'm going to point to somebody. I've demonstrated, shut the fuck up. I've demonstrated that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, that I don't know basic scientific things, that I don't know evolution is an established fact, that the amount of evidence, all right, you're muted. Now your only choice is to listen to me, that your only, the amount of evidence for evolution is greater than any other scientific theory. It is an established fact, and you want to sit here and call somebody else blind because they don't go, when I look at the trees, I need that to be a dude. Everything needs a tuner. Everything needs an origin. A watch needs a watchmaker. Well, who made the watchmaker, Alexander?
Who made the multiverse?
Yeah, indeed. I don't believe in a multiverse, so I don't know why you're asking that. But you believe someone made the universe.
That's just great logic.
Excuse me?
You believe everything just formed everything in perfect order. I got to give it to you.
That is such a stupid way to summarize it. I believe the universe is operated on its observable facts that have been established. You don't understand point one of evolution. You want to point to cosmologists. You directly said cosmologists believe things they don't believe, that they don't profess. Why, Alexander, how are you anything but a waste of time if you are only making things up and lying?
I'm not lying.
You've lied multiple times. You've said scientists say, and then you say something they don't say. You've lied multiple times.
It's not a lie when I've heard the consensus.
You didn't hear from who? From whom did you hear the consensus? A pastor?
That's great.
From whom did you hear the consensus? Yes, I'm going to keep interrupting you when you say stupid shit. From whom did you hear the consensus that the earth cannot change distance from the sun safely? From where did you hear that consensus? Was it a pastor?
No, it was not. It was, I believe, for one, like I said, I'm not a really, I don't know a lot of scientists' names. But
no kidding.
For once, it was.
You don't know a lot of science either.
Let me just tell you. Guys in the chat, interrupting is not going to help anything.
I don't give a fuck what the guys in the chat or you say. None of it fucking matters to me. You're sitting here wasting my time and my audience's time. You're going to do this the way I want to do it, or you can fuck off.
Hugh Ross. There you go.
What's that?
Tell me about what you think about that guy. Idiot too.
No, bitch. You don't get to fucking just make up. Now we're going to go to here and try to go with some hyper specific thing that I think I can win an argument on. You're going to finish answering my questions. From where? Shut the fuck up. I'm just going to mute you.
Liar.
Shut the fuck up, you fucking liar. From where did you hear that the scientific consensus was that the earth cannot move at all further or closer? From where did you hear that consensus, or the earth would be destroyed?
I've been saying it 10 times, but you're so... Hugh Ross, man. Hugh
Ross said that the earth cannot move its distance or it will be destroyed. Then Hugh Ross, first of all, you're talking about somebody who works for fucking the douchebag with the arc in Kentucky. You're talking about the guy from Reasons to Believe. And you know what? I still don't believe he said that. Even though he is a hack, even though he is a terrible apologist, even though he sucks as a scientist, I'm still pointing at you, Alexander, and saying Hugh Ross did not say that the Earth cannot move an inch closer or an inch further or any amount distance closer or further that isn't obvious, like we can't go several light years away. He did not say that. No, he didn't.
I know for sure that about fine tuning.
No,
look, man.
He did not. You said you represented the consensus and that you didn't lie.
You said that.
You said it. And that you didn't lie. So either admit that you lied, that was the consensus.
I'm not lying.
And yes, you did. Did Hugh Ross say?
Okay, Hugh Ross for sure that the fine tuning is real.
We're not talking about the fine tuning argument. We're not talking about the fine tuning argument. We're talking about, you said that Hugh Ross, and you also said that the scientific consensus was that if the Earth were to move any distance, further or closer, the world would be destroyed. Neither is true. The scientific consensus is not that, which you've already acknowledged because you already know that the orbit of Earth is an elliptical. It's fucking crazy because you're now arguing against not just me, but yourself from 10 minutes ago. That is how deranged you are in your commitment to your ideology. No one can hear you when you try to talk over me. The board prioritizes me. I can't even hear you. Just shut up. Neither the scientific consensus, now you're muted again. The scientific consensus is not that, and Hugh Ross, even being the Christian apologist jackass he is, did not say that the Earth cannot move any distance without being destroyed, different than it is now. I will now unmute you, and now, because you're my little puppet on my strings and will dance when I tell you to, you little bitch, you may reply if you like.
Hey, man, I can be your puppet all I want, but you're not going to say that on Judgment Day, man.
I'm not going to say anything on Judgment Day because there's no reason to believe a Judgment Day is going to happen. It's so fucking... You're threatening me with Santa Claus now. Oh, no. Am I not going to get any presents? You are a delusional person. And there is nothing remotely powerful about a person who... I'm muting you again because I actually don't really give a fuck anything else you have to say now that you're going to just testify. There is nothing scary about a person who has shown they don't know fucking shit about science, who believes the Earth is 7,000 to 8,000 years old, who lies about what scientific consensus is, who lies about what even people on his own side has said. There is zero things scary about a person like that telling me on Judgment Day, and then you're going to go to hell. I'm going to laugh. You're going to be burned in prison because my loving God will torture you for eternity. It's not remotely impressive. I'm going to give you 10 seconds for your final statement, and then I'm fucking done with your stupid ass.
Hey, Jimmy, I know there's a lot of hostility in the conversation, but besides all of that, I can still respect you as a person, and we can still come to square one and just having a conversation, because I do really like going back and forth, even though if I don't have really, really, like, okay, I'm going to say...
Your 10 seconds are up. Your 10 seconds are up, and I'm dropping you because I don't respect you as a person, just so you know. I don't respect people who... I respect your humanity, but as a person who has decided, who is making decisions about what types of information they're going to consume... I said 10 seconds. You didn't even bother to give a shit about that. I don't respect you as a person. So I don't, this thing that you're trying to, at least we can come together. I won't cut in front of you in the bathroom. I don't think I'm entitled to that. But as a person and as a thinker, I don't respect you at all. What a sad life, honestly. What a sad life. And further examples of the futile attempts to infantilize people. And to when you have lost at every angle, from every direction, this, whatever you want to call it, conversation, argument, whatever, that admittedly I had to cut into and interrupt a lot, but I'm not going to fucking waste time on. You just said another stupid thing, but you want to say 12 more stupid things before I'm going to cut in. I'm the only one who gets to talk like a jackass as long as he wants. When I have co-hosts, I usually will let them too. Every now and then I cut in and go, let's move the fuck on. You threatened me with Santa Claus. fucking, oh no. I'm going to take this call very quickly. It won't be a very long one, but it's worth it because it seems like the same problem that was happening before is happening now. Jara in New York, you are on the line with Jimmy Snow.
Hey, Jimmy, hope your night's going all right. Just caught the line, and
did you catch that last call?
Having an all right time. Not the whole thing. I called in on the phone number. Didn't really,
That was a wild time.
The whole bit.
I was condescended to intellectually by somebody who believes that the Earth is 7,000 to 8,000 years old.
Yeah, that type will do that.
Yeah. Anyway, Jara, you wanted to call about the father who called earlier in regards to the person who called in earlier in regards to the hypothetical of a man who kills his daughter's rapist. And you just wrote that you think the father was right. So I don't know if this is a point of contention or if you're actually addressing the nuance where I said I would also probably kill my daughter's rapist. What's your point of conflict?
Okay, so this wasn't from a call that happened earlier. This was last week. You called me a scumbag for disagreeing with you. But like you said, even in the text, there is nuance.
I probably stand by it.
But
Did I call you a scumbag in the comments or in a call?
Comments.
Right. And I think I probably called you a scumbag for not actually representing my argument. And had you watched the entire show, we actually addressed this already and brought it up again where a caller who had done the same thing you had done in comments went back and watched my original comments, watched the original episode, and he called back to apologize that he had misrepresented me. But I will hold no such expectation that that's going to happen here.
Yeah, maybe it will. But the thing I was most calling about was you side. Well, I guess we agree then. You were saying, yeah, probably not a fine thing to do, but I could see where you agree. But you were like,
I don't even think I've said that.
We live in a society. I would vote to convict.
I would. What did I specifically say? Did you go back and watch after I corrected you already?
I'm sure.
Okay, what was the basis upon which I would convict?
That we live in a society, pretty much.
Not just that. What is a society can we not reward? What is it impossible to have as a justice system? In a justice system, what as a society can we not reward?
That's a good question.
Vigilante justice. That was the point.
Okay.
I would vote to convict on the basis that as a society, by the way, I even said in the call earlier, it's too bad that you weren't listening. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe as an imperfect person with that power, angry enough at whatever the circumstances are, I would actually step outside of what I think philosophically from a grander lens is probably the right thing to do. And maybe I would go, I can actually break this in a mistrial or a hung jury. And you know what? I wish the guy was still alive so I could kill him too. Maybe as an imperfect person, I would in a way abuse my authority then. But the point was, we live in a society with a justice system which cannot reward vigilante justice. And we have laws surrounding it because vigilante justice is imperfect. And when you start to allow fathers who kill their daughters' rapists, you then have to have special strange trials around fathers who were 100% sure that they were killing their daughter's rapists, but they ended up killing somebody else. You cannot reward vigilante justice in this system, in a fair justice system. You cannot.
And I'm not saying you should, but the hypothetical that the other caller put through was like the guy slipped through the cracks of the justice system. And then what? I mean, you don't reward him, and you might even vote to convict. But as a person, I don't know. If
you would have to then...
and it sounds like
again, we're talking about things which I, as a person, would be capable of doing. If my daughter's rapist, and I had 100% certainty, say I had witnessed it, or there was video evidence, or whatever. And by the way, also just the fact that I love my daughter, and if I have a daughter, I probably would just believe her on that basis too. If that's just kind of, I don't think that's that crazy that a lot of dads, if your daughter comes crying and says that she was raped by somebody, that you go, well, but were you? So even just on that basis, if that person does not then get brought to justice, I am probably capable as a human of quote unquote taking that into my own hands with the understanding that I do not live in a society which rewards that. And that will ultimately result in my imprisonment and result in a conviction, just in the same way that the father who charged Larry Nassar at his trial understood that had he succeeded, as he was attempting to, that would have likely happened to him. That's not what mattered to him. But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about whether or not on an individual level, would I wish my daughter's rapist dead? We also, by the way, don't live in a country which issues the death penalty for rape.
Right. No, but I was just I guess I was personally indignant that you shifted it over to the greater societal implications than just like your personal beliefs on it. But like you're saying,
I don't think I did that.
It's a little bit more. I could see it. Okay, maybe I just misunderstood it in the.
Jar, I think so. I'm not trying to beat up because you're trying to be a little bit charitable here, so I'm not trying to beat up. The caller from earlier, go back and check the other callers. The caller from earlier literally called to say, basically, I had the same position as you on Tuesday or Monday when I talked to Shannon and Will. I had the same position rather of Jara. You had said, go back and watch again, because what I actually said was this and this. I went back and watched and found you did in fact say that, and they called to apologize. So Jara, it's fair enough. If you're saying that now with the nuance, we're not as far apart, and if that's what I actually said, go look. I think you will find that is what I actually said. As far as calling you a scumbag, I'd like to reduce that insult to something that just means, maybe don't rush to such summary without the nuances that were presented.
No, I get it, but there's a certain sect out there that believes that there is no like just cause, or violence is never just, and I thought you were more on that side. I do not think that. I think violence many times in the past has been justified. I think there will probably be justified violence in the future. Obviously, we can point to easy extreme examples. You end a Holocaust, you end the Nazis with violence, right? You end slavery with violence. What's that? They don't see it. Oh, I'm saying some of these conversations I see out here on the internet, some people just can't wrap their heads around. It's all very nice,
I get it. I do think that you try to make a societal change if there is an imperfect law. So let's say you and I agreed that actually in that scenario, the rapist should be put to death by, again, I don't believe in the death penalty. It actually doesn't have anything to do with what the victim or what the perpetrator of the crime did. It has to do with extending powers to the government that can be abused. And basically that I think it's a hard line. You can't give the government the power to kill its own citizens. But beyond that, let's say we agreed that was worthy of the death penalty. I would then advocate for trying to convince and change society, because unfortunately, the reality is if you don't do it that way, you're not guaranteed to be on the winning team if you decide to enforce that by violence. And I think societal change is the best way, the best type of change when it can be affected through changing people's minds by having the better reasoning. But I live in America. I'm not saying I think that always works. And I'm not saying that I even think that the fascists are going to lose here because, America is going to realize that anti-fascism is a better idea. It's hard enough to tell you what things I do actually believe than have to defend myself against things I don't. It would be my concluding thought. What about you, Jara?
No, that's fair, and I think that well, you pretty much said it all, Jimmy. It's
cool.
Pretty hard to figure out some of these things. Seems like we agree on a lot here.
I even suspect in thinking about that call more and more, I even suspect I probably would abuse my jury power. I've made this example before too. Like as a secular humanist, I think that to be consistent with secular humanism, when we talked about it, Matt wasn't sure that he agreed with this necessarily as a proposition, but we didn't further go through it. So maybe I've talked to him, but I had said at one point, as a secular humanist and a person who knows what I think the ideal is, if I were to come across my dog, who I love, and Ben Shapiro drowning in a pool, and Ben Shapiro, who I resent, and I only have time to save one of them, I believe that the most consistent with secular humanism, valuing what value it puts on human life and advanced life and sentient life, I believe that technically the correct thing to do in that scenario would be to save Ben Shapiro. What I would actually do in that scenario, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say, but I'm an imperfect person.
No, and I think that really says it all right there. Actually, I might have deserved the scumbag thing, because when you put out the greater societal implications of would convict, I did invoke your stance on slavery, and I know where you're like, I asked, would you return an escaped slave during those times, because it's the law. So I kind of came, with a hard edge on that,
I get it. And no, I that's probably the reason why I said scumbag. And so fair enough. I don't need you to take on the scumbag label. I'm glad we've come to some sort of reconciliation here. But yeah, it's in that time, I would hope as myself, because it's hard to even know what I would have done back then, because I would have grown up in a world where slavery around me would have been normal. And based on my family history, I probably would have been pro-slavery if I had lived at that time. I like to hope that a person with my mind would have seen through how unfair it is and would have defected to the North and would have taken things. But look, I've advocated for people leaving America as essentially, voluntary refugees if they have to. At the moment, voluntary, because of how bad things are getting here. So certainly I'm not saying society deems what is correct. Society or the government deems what's moral or correct or anything. And I never would.
Yeah, that's where I think I got confused there with the would convict thing. And just saying, maybe I'd quit it, give a hung jury, things are a little more complicated.
Yeah, like I said, the more I've thought about it, the more I've thought, in theory, I should vote to convict because we can't reward vigilantes. In practice, maybe I would hope if we just rewarded this one vigilante that I get to vote on, no one would notice. I don't know.
Well, that's a fair thing to say.
Sure. Well, awesome, Jar. I'm glad we came to some understanding.
All right. And hope it keeps up.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Good luck out here.
Yeah. Later. Cool. I always like that. That's the best resolution, when two people think they disagree and it turns out that yes, they actually almost completely agree. It was just some phrasing that threw some things off, because it sounds like Char and I can be a little bit perhaps overzealous. Again, in the moment, I thought I was being accused of, well, he already summarized it, that I would have been pro-slavery even if I knew it was wrong. And so we were both operating with some presumption. So I'm glad we were able to resolve that. Anyway, we're going to hit up super chats now. I am closing the lines, ending the call-in portion of the show, and we will finish up bloop, bloop, on super chats. Super chats for a super time. I don't need this window anymore. Let me come back into here and see if I've missed any while we were talking. It looks like the most recent was Emery, and that's still it. Hey, I really wouldn't mind if anybody wants to super chat about this, specifically $5 or more. And also I'll generally, actually, I'm going to do a poll as well, but I'd love it if people super chatted because again, we got to pay bills, but, and because, it's nice to read things out. Let's do a poll question that's like this. We'll do, what did you think of the first half of the show? And we'll go with liked it, looking forward to more, or loved it. No, I'm just kidding. We'll go with watched it, probably not my thing. And then I'll do a third option, which I don't like doing third options, but I'll do a third option, which will be just didn't see it. Didn't see it. We'll do the first half of the show comma, our/news, and roast the rest. And I do want to say, as you consider this, do know I'm not saying that you're voting that it's perfect and ready. Clearly there was some issues. I'm kind of proud of how well it went off. Like, I feel like the worst thing that happened was one time the teleprompter was in the wrong spot. And I kind of had to reach under and though I acknowledged at some points that I was putting my hand on my thigh, which I was doing like this. And I realized that there were people who probably thought the way I was triggering camera shortcuts had to do with the fact that my hand was on my thigh, that maybe I had shortcut buttons down here. And that is how I was doing it. And so that's why I brought my hands back above to eliminate that. I wanted people to, also, it's probably just not best to do this when you've got a table like this. I'm not sure that this is a normal pose you necessarily want to go into, but yeah, anyway, that's not important. It's not fucking important, guys. And so I'm not saying that it can't be better, because it will be better. I just want to know generally how you like the vibe, if you think you'll be watching more, if you'll be going over to my personal channel, Jimmy Snow, to make sure that you can see it. And then if anybody has any specific notes, recommendations, you want to give advice, I'll take advice, unsolicited advice, when you pay for it. Any super chat of $5 or more. And then specifically for the super chat question of the day, put SQD at the beginning, just so we know that that's what we're talking about. But super chats of, we'll do non-question ones also. That would be funny. Okay. We've got to change to the super chat window, which is this one. Also, I need to move my camera to the jogged position. I'm sure people have figured out how I am changing things, how I am queuing up stuff, despite being a solo producer, how shortcuts are happening. But I like to think that it's blowing some people's minds, just like, what? How'd he move the camera? His hands are right there. How'd he move it? What the fuck? Guys, he's some sort of wizard. How'd he do it? Oh my God. How'd he do it? I feel like I'm quoting a Instagram audio I've heard on a lot of reels that I assume comes from TikTok. How did he do it? How did he do it? I don't know what I'm doing, man. Yeah, I realize what it is. All right, BW Dingus says, I am so tired of Trump. This is in response to the super chat question of the day, which was, by the way, if you forgot, actually, let's merge that over so everyone can see. This is the question of the day that we're looking for more super chat responses to. I'm going to be very sad if we don't get more, just because it's a good signal when you're testing out if somebody wants to see stuff, if the show is supported well. So I'm unbuttoning my pants. I got like a fucking waistband wedgie, where it's like changing the texture of the skin on your waist. Anyway, will Donald Trump be the GOP nominee? Why or why not is the super chat question of the day. And our first response to that has been, what was this? $10 from BW Dingus, who responded to that with, I am so tired of Trump. T-Rump. I still can't believe he was the POTUS. I think the Republicans will prop him up again. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think that they're probably going to. Oh, I said I wasn't going to reveal. I think he's going to be the nominee, even if he's indicted, or not indicted, but convicted. I think he'll be the nominee. I don't think there's any version of him that could drop out. And there may even be some version of him that thinks I can't drop out because maybe I have to stay so I can be sure I get a pardon. I'm not sure that, you know, if I'm convicted, that everybody doesn't turn their back on me and go, well, now that it's convicted, I want to say, I won't be pardoning him. Though I actually also think that Donald Trump would probably, or Biden, I think will probably, unfortunately, I think Biden would pardon Trump after winning re-election, doing a sort of like, we've got to heal as a nation. I'm serious, not a joke. The American people want to move forward, not look back. And definitely they don't want to look at more videos of my son getting blowjobs. Not in Congress, not a joke. Marjorie Taylor Greene is making my son a fucking legend. Oh, fucking shit. I'm a bad guy. Jackie Greenland says, super chat question of the day. Probably because the cult is still strong. Also, if you do a reduced line meet line con next year, will it still be the weekend before the eclipse? 6-7 approximately international flights to book. And my wife is an astrophotographer. Here's what I would say. At the moment, if you are planning to come for the eclipse, do that. I don't want to tell anybody to make plans and book flights until we have a hard plan. And the reality is we need to significantly increase. And I know when some people look at it, it's like, but Patreon's pretty well supported. You've got like, I think we have 600 people there. We need more. We legitimately do need more to be able to do events and other stuff. One of the things is that I'm not going to ask any of the hosts to give up their share of Patreon. We have a system. It's a profit share system based on how much work people do, how many episodes they do, that sort of thing, as well as getting paid directly for the episodes they're in. But we profit share everything. And so we are talking about a reduced amount from what you see. And we need that support. Patreon.com/calltheline if anybody wants to participate in that to go up before we'd be ready to say. So I don't want anyone to book something and lose money if it all falls apart. So if you're already planning to be here for the full solar eclipse, and by the way, it wasn't the weekend before, we wanted to do it the weekend of. If you're planning to be here for that, great, but don't make plans that would make, I don't want to feel like a bad guy if I can't be there or things fall apart or whatever. In fact, because I have health issues, when we do put up LineCon, you will probably see like, here's who's confirmed at LineCon, and Jimmy will probably be there. Like, probably. He'll probably be around. But even that, I'm afraid to like bill myself on the marquee or whatever the phrase is. I think I just mixed two phrases together. Excuse me. Super question of the day. The GOP will nominate Trump even if he's in prison because they are soulless, spineless cowards. Love you, Jimothy. Go fuck yourself. So the only thing I could see conflicting with this, Elite Trainer Kenway, is if he went to prison soon enough and actually had to stay there and it limited his ability to speak on camera and at rallies, which I assume it would have to. It may be that not being able to defend yourself from prison would be the thing that finally takes him down. The thing is they love their constant refreshment of him being crazy. And if you take that away, like just think about when Andrew Tate was in jail for all of that time. Sure, his followers he still had plenty of diehard followers, but the number of people who were interacting with his stuff and being particularly enthused when they weren't getting constant refreshment except for like vague tweets that were dictated, it did reduce while he was out of jail. Now, if Donald Trump then somehow is released from prison the month leading up to the election, then he probably wins in a landslide because America's fucking stupid. But other than that, I think if he was in prison long enough, I actually think it could hurt him and stop him from winning both the nomination but there's not enough time to stop it from happening before the nomination. I don't think. Also responding to the question of the day, Nee says, to torpedo Trump's chances at becoming the nominee, which other Republican should we vote for in open primary states like Republicans voting for Obama in 2008 to prevent him from becoming the nominee? How should we sabotage the open Republican primaries? I don't know if you could do it. I mean, what hasn't Trump survived? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're saying you could actually overwhelm the vote and just get them more physical votes, not just in the open primary states, but that would result in other states, then I'd say go probably Chris Christie, because Chris Christie would be the best on a debate stage against him. Chris Christie would be the least who would take shit, the less he would capitulate the least. It would be, I got to think it would be Chris Christie as far as having a chance to really hurting the guy by forcing him onto a debate stage with him. If he even then agreed to go on the debate stage, he might not still at that point. And then you have the added benefit of Chris Christie will only be as bad as George W. Bush. He won't be as bad as Trump, only as bad as Bush, which is not great, but it's survivable, probably. I think he's also less of a war tycoon. Elizabeth and seems to actually want to have bipartisan solutions to many things, more than your average Republican does. But even a lot of the bipartisan solutions, again, I'm a leftist, so they're not ever really like, yay, this is still so far from my position. Liz Kriz, in response, says, Trump won't be the nominee if there is a fair and loving God to protect us, God protecting us all. In other words, yeah, he'll probably win the nomination because there's no God and most people aren't good. I hope something changes. I hope something big happens. Something bigly. I hope weariness happens. Because obviously we've got Trump fatigue, right? But I hope they get fatigued with defending him all the time. Donald Trump is currently found liable, which is technically different. It's a sort of distinction, a difference without a distinction, or whatever the phrase is, for sexual assault and fraud, which essentially means the court said you did it. It is the equivalent of guilty. But it's because these are civil things, it's different. They're not crime. They're not trying them for crimes, though. The fraud thing, I guess, could maybe turn into a criminal thing eventually. I don't know. Anyway, so all of his legal troubles are not working out lately. One after another, the pins are falling, and he just lost his business. Like, he basically just got his business murdered. So I don't know. I don't know. I got cookies. Oh, you don't have to do that. You already do so much here. Trump will be the nominee. However, he won't be at the debate because he's not allowed to talk to witnesses at his upcoming trial, according to Hassan. That would not hold up. A judge wouldn't enforce it, and that's already understood. As far as the debate itself goes, it would not hold up that you can't go to a public event that is broadcasted and go to a political debate against an opponent. The court wouldn't enforce it. Now, there are probably gag orders coming. Today, he implicitly threatened Letitia James, said something along the lines of, not like, he didn't say, this judge needs to be disbarred, or we really need to win on appeal and try and get that judge removed from her position. He just put, this judge must be stopped, which is the sort of thing where it's like, sure, that doesn't have to be a threat of violence, but it's somewhat obscure and can be a threat of violence. And that's probably why that phrase was appealing, both that he wouldn't hate it if one of his fucking sycophants decided, yeah, let's do that. And he wouldn't hate it if Letitia James was scared. Cause he's a real sack of shit. But yeah, I don't know. Hassan can be very brash on many things. Now, I could say him saying he's not going to debate because the judge won't let him, and then the judge saying, no, it's fine. And then he'll go, no, you're saying I can't go. And so we wanted to go, but if they really thought they could have blamed it on that, especially as he's already been ignoring these orders to not talk about people, and he would have already blamed it on that if that was a thing. I think Hassan is just sort of hypothesizing, which he is wont to do, but I think he's a good guy. I'm not trying to complain about him. I'm just saying he has said things in this specific arena that are not probably true. Even if you can point to a hypothesis about the gag orders and stuff, he is still not only would that not be held up, it shouldn't be. Political opponents not being able to go to a debate together. However, he could then be liable if he then turned to Mike Pence and said, and if I swear to God, if you don't withdraw your testimony, I'm not going to like you anymore. It's not even that crazy. He's said things like that before. Well, it was if he doesn't overturn the Constitution tomorrow, I'm not going to like him very much anymore. That was a summary. It wasn't perfect words. Larry Fishman says, technically the alligator was native to the Americas, so it would never be granted the stand your ground defense. First of all, it was the stand your swampy ground. You're talking about a different law. But I will allow people to correct my jokes as long as they pay for it. SQD, super chat question of the day from John Moyer. Trump will be the nominee if the GOP base thinks the leadership cheated him. The party will be fractured beyond repair for the foreseeable future. Hey, do you want to know what's even scarier? If Trump isn't the nominee, it probably will be Vivek Ramaswamy. And that fucker is crazy. He is a crazy man. Remember the joke about Kim Jong-un? Now, we're fine with you believing he can't poop. He doesn't poop, that he can fly, and then he decides when it rains. But if you say you want to live in his country, that's too crazy. That was a pretty good one. I liked that one. I'm pretty attached to that one. I'm also a little bit obsessed with North Korea. Piao meow noir. Piao meow noir. Uwu says Benjamin here. Here's some money for Jimmy that ain't going to the clergy. Have an awesome night. I promise to not move that along to the clergy. I promise you that $5 will not end up with the clergy. $20 Canadian, alleged, from Kathleen Moncrief. Yes, he will, because he wants to be the nominee. And for whatever weird combination of reasons, people usually give him what he wants. He's like the Pied Piper of politics. I'm the Pied Piper, on me. Hey, this is kind of nice. So 32% of people didn't see it. Of the remainder, though, 62% said they liked it, and only 5% said they watched it, but it's probably not their thing. 6% now, and that's fine. But look, those are pretty good numbers, I gotta say. I mean, that roughly comes out to, of the people who watched it, about 90-10. And to tell you the truth, I would have expected much worse. I would have been fine with like 40% of people were like, this is pretty good, because so one of the things I know about myself, and I know about shows I've done in the past, there's a thing about me, and I can't explain it to you, but as a person, people usually like me very much at first, then they dislike me, and then they like me more than ever. I don't know what it is. Now, as a creator, people usually dislike me at first, and then I swear one of the most common Jimmy comments we get is, I really hated Jimmy, but for some reason I like him now. Or Jimmy used to really get on my nerves, and now I like there's so many, I really thought Jimmy sucked, but it's turning out it's a weird thing. And for the record, I don't take it personally when people dislike me, because that makes sense to me. I get it. You think you dislike me? Have you met me? I dislike myself way more. Anyway, it's nice to see. It's nice to see that people are responding well to it. I wonder how many of those people were familiar with what I had done before. But yeah, I'm like, somebody clipped the uwu. Do you want another one? $20 for another uwu, and I'll put a little more effort into it. Someone can buy an actually attempted uwu. I'll even try to do the meme. I don't speak in an uwu voice. I don't know. How does it go? I don't speak in an uwu voice. I don't know what you expected me to do. And then you'll see $20. How many people in chat? Actually, that's what I want to know. I'm not going to allow people to answer who just hate me now. I'm going to end that poll. I'm going to do this is so fucking, I get it. This is gross. This is ego shit. I'm sorry. Who here disliked Jimmy, but now likes him? And we'll put hated him before, like him now. Always liked him. Never liked him. It's just something I'm very, very curious about. How common that is, because it's a common comment, but for all I know, it could be the type of comment that, even though very few people feel it, it's a thing you're more likely to comment, and therefore it seems like it represents within the audience that it's higher. As I'm trying to explain it, I'm eating up everyone's going to hate me by the time I'm done explaining it. It's just interesting to know to me. Boy, whoa, that is pretty. Also, I hate that I've never liked him. The only reason why I didn't like putting that on is not that I care if people hit it, is that I think a lot of people are going to hit it because they think that's the funniest option. And that's, I can't see which votes are sarcastic, right? But hey, look, if 10% of people who never liked me are still watching, fucking rad. Rad. And I'm sorry that you don't have something better to watch. Like, that's not a joke. I really, for real. If I'm still the best of a Wednesday night for you right now, my apologies. See, I said the thing about it being the funnier vote, and then people went, oh yeah, it is the funnier vote. And they started hitting it. You guys are monsters on this. Yeah. Well, fuck. I fucked it up by pointing that out. Or I didn't. Maybe these are the real results. Emery King says, call up Forrest right now and ask him how he could possibly still defend evolution if fossil records show that fish eat other fish and the flood proves it. Checkmate. Science is a liar sometimes. Ba-da-bum, ba-ba-da-ba-ba. I don't know what he'll answer the phone saying. So I'm going to mute while it rings. I do know he's studying. Yeah, he might not answer. He didn't answer. I'll get him another time. But I tried. Oh, I should have added used to like him. Now I hate him. That's the one that would have gotten the biggest vote. But I mean, as I'm looking at the vote now, let's say it's accurate, even though I think I skewed the results. But let's just say it's accurate. Right now, the number of people who have never liked me is matching the number of people who used to not like me and do like me now. Imagine that. I just am saying it's a weird, I'm not bragging about it. I'd rather just be liked. Like, I think everybody just wants people to like them. But if half of the people that don't like you at first end up liking you, that's a pretty good score. Like, that's not bad. I do not believe the 75% always liked number, but it's only of 146 votes. Maybe it's impossible to extrapolate. Autistic, that's funny, says, my toxic trait is that I love the top tier light bullying that condescending callers get from Jimmy. I'm pretty good at it. If people are rude to me and assholes, like, if we want to just have a conversation, human to human, we're on the same level. But if you want to have a fucking asshole fight, I'm UFC and you play badminton. It's a different sport. I'm going to kick your ass. And I say this because I actually play badminton in real life. That's the not likely to win against a fighter sport. The one that I do. $5 from Eddie Dean. I feel like it's appropriate to send $5 just to say that at Jimmy is a handsome beast. Well, thank you. I've clearly tricked you. I will tell you, yesterday I added a hair light and it has made all of the difference. Just this little bit of reflection that you see off of here creates an amount of separation between me and that black curtain behind there that before I think looked like total shit. And I'm pretty happy about the production choices I've been making in here, but I still have not nailed what I want in this corner. Right now it's a curtain, but I have some ideas. It can't be something too huge. I haven't decided. Follow me, I'm the Pied Piper. Ah, fuck, I gotta pay royalties. Dustin Waldron says, but somebody asked me the other day, I don't remember who it was. They were asking when I made that joke the other day, if that's true. No, if you just one off a couple of lines, that's not true. However, one time I went on a Surus stream years ago, and I played the piano and he got copyright struck. Well, he got a copyright notice that they were going to take the revenue. So he just took it down. But yeah. Dustin Waldron said, great job on the first half and entire show. Thank you so much. Enjoyed the magic production things. Go Jimmy yourself, Jimmy, as often and as long as you like. Did anyone, I think Jen knows how the cameras are done. Jen, did anybody guess in chat correctly? Let me go see here now. Eve Werlemer says, even if the Republicans did manage to elect a different nominee, the MAGA cult would still write him in. Oh, that's interesting. That's a good thing if that's true, because then he will lose to Biden. Trump as a write-in is a guaranteed Biden win. Okay, yeah, some people guessed right. Trump. Now look, then we get Biden 4 more years. Okay, fine. Not as bad as we thought he'd be, but he's not. I'm not ideologically aligned with Biden. He is further right. He is to the right of me by quite a bit. But fine, we'll have him, and then when he probably passes away, we'll have Kamala Harris because he can he make it to 86 years old? Even if he doesn't die. I don't know that I'm saying it's statistically unlikely. I guess that's what I'm saying is the odds, if you just look at number of people who are 82 who will still be able to do a job like be president, which I think he'll be, right, 82 when he would start his next term, by the time that they would be able to still have the job be by 86. Like that is the decade of fall off, right? That is the most dramatic decade of, if you start at 80 years old, the chances of you making it to 90 are like way lower than 70 to 80. So I'm just saying statistically, it seems unlikely that he ends his second term on time. Just statistically. Trying to not be ageist, but it just seems like a long shot. But that would be an automatic win for whatever the blue ticket was. The damage has been done this is by Make New Pieces. The damage has been done the first time around with our now theocratic SCOTUS. Yeah, you're fucking right about that. Hopefully he'll have an inmate number by then. But yes, I do think he'll be the GOP nominee. That is so sad, but we agree. Dan Hodemaker says, thanks, Jimmy. You're a great ambassador for sanity, logic, and reason in this insane world. Keep on trucking, dude. Team Jimothy Belland. I want to make it clear that I don't consider myself an ambassador. I don't consider myself a thought leader. I don't consider myself anything besides a performer, legitimately. I don't think I'm brilliant. I know I'm capable. My brain's fine. It's not... I was smarter when I was younger, but I was even more wrong then. Legitimately, my brain's not as good as it was due to medical stuff, but as it was when I was a kid. And I think that's also just a part of aging. Did I just hear my ringer go off? I heard something. But legitimately, I just think of myself as I know what I believe. I seem to have good reasons for those beliefs. I am constantly trying to get better. And I think that people enjoy hearing me express some of their frustrations because I think I'm clever with words. I think I am quippy. And that's a skill that I've practiced very much. And so I think I'm okay at it. I don't ever want to be mistaken for somebody who thinks I'm brilliant, somebody who thinks I'm, the word ambassador is just uncomfortable for me. I don't want someone to point to me and go, Jimmy Snow is the atheist you should be. Jimmy Snow, first of all, is neurotic, obsessive when it comes to this job, lonely, depressed, anxious, constantly sick because of medical stuff. I don't want to complain about my lot in life. Like, oh, if only everything could have been different. I could have gone and been a contender. But I will say, I don't want people to look at me as some sort of ambassador because I maybe am a good ambassador for skepticism enough. But if somebody was like, Jimmy Snow is proof that you can be happy as an atheist. I think you can be happy as an atheist. I think I'm an atheist and unhappy. Shit. I'm getting too real. It's one of those things where you go for a while and you start to let more out. I'm going to back off a little bit. Keep a little bit of this stuff inside. Keep a little inside. By the way, I do experience happiness. I had a very happy moment this week that I can't really tell you about. It involves another person and it's a very private thing, but I got to have a conversation with somebody that made me very happy. Made me feel very validated in a lot of ways. But then I had other conversations this week that made me want to fucking drill my eyes out. And that's not even a joke. My fucking God. There have been some things, other convos this week that literally it's just like, what the fuck am I even why am I bothering? Why do I fucking bother? Anyway, thank you very much, Dan. Sorry I just spent so many minutes saying Reduce your expectations to zero. Reduce your expectations to zero. Ross Settle says, love political episodes. Thank you. Well, it's going to be tons of these. Make sure you watch over on my personal channel, Jimmy Snow. What you saw tonight will be the first 2 segments. I imagine they'll usually be shorter because I wrote something like 20 to 30 pages of dialogue. That whole thing. My guess is to be able to do that daily, I probably have to reduce it to what comes out to like 30 to 35 minutes, especially if I want to do a segment after responding to like an apologist video or something. Monkey at Typewriter says 100% it'll be Trump. It's because Republican voters hate about half the country. I totally agree. It's how they give us the finger. And that hate means they don't want the best Republican president. They want the best anti-everything else president. They don't care whether he's a good Republican. They care if he hurts what they perceive as their opposition. I just saw my poll again. I was, oh my God, fucking ego on full display. What a dick. What a fucking dick. Hey, do you guys like me? When did you start liking me? What the fuck is wrong with me? I need to know. For real. Does anyone disagree that poll doesn't make me, even the people who are like, I've always liked you, Jimmy, but that poll makes me an asshole, right? I know I was curious and that was genuine, but I'm just thinking about it more and going, what the fuck? What the fuck? Whoa, oh shit. 1 second. I gotta plug this back in. I unplugged it and it changed my screen setup. Oh no, come back. There we go. Enough. All right. Scooby-Doo-Wah-Doo-Wah. My friend, Skeptics and Scoundrels, Eric, who filled in last night when Dave had to cancel, and I very much appreciated that because I was going to do it if Eric couldn't. Trump will likely be the nominee unless the GOP finally decide he's no longer worth it. But like Gandalf and the writers of Rohan at Helm's Deep, Gen Z will save us on Election Day, hopefully. I hope that's true too. I do put a lot of hope in. It's one of those things that are tough because I did it with my generation too, where it's like, Gen Z, I'm really proud of you because you vote more than the millennials did. And the millennials voted more than the people before. But also, before we pat ourselves on the back, you're still not voting enough. Millennials suck for how little they voted and how little they're voting now. And Gen Z, I'm glad you do it more. But you don't do it enough to avoid sucking. Please vote. Just not for me. A couple of years ago, I thought I would want to do that. I've been disabused of that notion. Slackback says, SQD. Super chat question of the day. Trump doesn't matter. Starscream will win the election. All hell President Starscream. You know, it'd be better. I might have to hold my breath to stop these hiccups from happening. Slackback also said, to be clear, I have voted always liked, but most of the time I see you with another host, I may end up hating you solo. I do plan to bring on guests a lot to the show. However, okay, so I have a funny idea for how to incorporate them in the parts where I'm doing essentially my monologue. For the record, they won't be able to talk, but they'll be present. And then bringing them in for the call-in portion and maybe for some other collab segments. I Got Cookie says, you control that camera with your dick, right? That's what everyone guessed. You think I could sustain an erection for 2.5 hours and still at a whim do this? Are you crazy? I can't. Oh my goodness. I mean, look, I can sustain with the right partner and an exciting circumstance. Sure. 2.5 hours, fine. But that's of constant interaction. Okay. There's, that's not a 2.5 hours of waiting for it to go down. Jason Jack says, just take my money, Jimmy, and you know what to do. Go Jim your Jimmy. Thank you. I will Jim my Jimmy. Jim Jiminy, Jim Jiminy, Jim Jim Jaroo. President Starscream says, hi, everybody. Oh my God, Dylan did it. But first, from Eddie Dean, How long till the merch comes out? I'm trying to get a hoodie for winter this weekend. I'm planning to have it out this weekend. I would say maybe tomorrow we'll start to see the first elements. And then, but probably Friday, Saturday. I actually have ideas for merch that, and ones we've talked about that I'm actually excited to get on there. I will tell you, our provider, I think even if we set our hoodies for like $45, we still only make a couple bucks. It's not much. And so, I on the one hand, I've bought the hoodies. They're pretty good. And I'm not trying to say don't buy a hoodie. But I could understand if a person sees whatever price we come out on to be profitable and to be able to support, if they go, can't, bud, too much. It's too much. I could see that. I do imagine we will offer coupon codes to anybody of $5 or more on Patreon. I do imagine that will be the case. That would make sense to me. Which means if you spend more than $50, you've just made your money back on merch. I mean, from the 10% coupon. I mean, if that's what we go with 10%, I don't know what it'd be at. Let me read the rest before I do it. First of all, you spelled it OWO. Is that how it's pronounced? I always thought it was UWU. Legitimate question, though. Would you attend a furry convention? There's a lot of overlap of atheism, secular humanism in the fandom, and I wish there was more content of it. And don't you have a koala persona, LOL? Dexter, lay down. I hear you doing crazy things. I don't like it. I probably wouldn't. And here's why. It has nothing to do with furries. I don't imagine I can't imagine myself attending a lot of types of conventions, even ones that I've attended in the past. I used to go to cosplay conventions a lot, not to cosplay, but as a photographer. I don't like them. I don't like the crowds. I don't like the people. And I got to tell you, I have a feeling that the smell of a cosplay convention, even big ones, Comic Cons and that kind, it's got to be very similar. The number of people who are like, deodorant, smudorant. And I get very hyper fixated on that. There's too much stimulation. Even that, like if everyone was in furry personas and it was an over. So I don't have any objection by any moral grounds or caring if somebody saw that I was there or then thought I was a furry. If I had to wear a fursona costume, I would probably wear the Zora Aura Pokemon. Apparently, I love that Pokemon. And I didn't know when I was like, this Pokemon's so cool. People were like, yeah, they made it for furries. It's a furry. It's basically a furry. I'd probably wear that if I was going to do a fursona. But anyway, yeah, that's okay. So you wanted the, I don't speak in an ooh-woo voice. I don't know what you expected me to do. Ooh-woo. It's hard to do the little orgasm that you're supposed to do with it. I feel like they always sound like it's a little cummy, a little ooh-woo, ooh-woo. There, I give you a few options. Ooh-woo. It's that at the end. Ooh-woo, ooh-woo. I did it too many times. I only promised one for $20, and there I just gave you like 9. I hope none of you climaxed. Inappropriate, Jimmy. Nobody ever there here to talk about politics, not fursonas and climaxing. You piece of shit. Yeah. Oh, there's one more. Oh, I'm glad this question came in. Yes, I will. How I will do this, I don't know yet. The question is, Jimmy, will you be continuing the breakdown of Mormon primary teachings? Yes. I think there will be elements of it in segments of the Sometimes show, but that specific one, right now I feel like I've been getting my fill doing the Book of Mormon reading on Aron's show, but I kind of want to take elements of that or even see if I want to do my own type of panel show. Now, I got to tell you, the next year, I wouldn't, I'm planning on being around for a while. So I don't know how much it's going to be in the next year, but a few. In fact, I have one planned already. But the next year, you should expect from November 5th. The reason I picked November 5th is that's 1 year to the election. It's going to be a lot of political stuff between the two. And then sort of, I'm not leaving the Sunday show. At least I don't think I am. I don't think I'm leaving the Sunday show. You might see me miss more Sunday shows because that's a lot of shows in a week. And I'm often producing shows and stuff too. That's just a lot. So you might see me take some more Sundays off than before. Maybe like right now, I tend to take one off every other month or so. maybe that goes up to 1 a month. Maybe that even goes up to 2 a month. But then also gives us the opportunity to show off people we like, try out people we like in that position, and see what the future is. Maybe we end up adding more official hosts to the line. Maybe I sort of, have the line have more of that sort of thing where Jimmy Snow has more sort of mine. So I guest over when I want to do more atheism and become less of an official presence. That could be what happens with time, but time will tell, and it'll only be if that's what it feels like. I want to say that's what it feels like the audience wants, but to tell you the truth, most of the people who subscribe to my channel, I won't say didn't. Most of the people never even tried the Sometimes Show, but most of them, so I'll put it this way: most of the people didn't sign up for the Sometimes Show. When I started doing the Sometimes Show the first time, it's completely unlike the stuff I was doing. And so in a way, I was stupid to expect it to be the best thing on the channel amongst the existing audience. Now I'm still doing it knowing that it's not the most popular thing I do over there. I don't even like the content that is the most popular thing I used to do over there. Now I'm doing it going, I'm okay if I lose all of my audience that's here, that already was there, not on the line, that was already on Jimmy Snow. Basically all, and it's not going to be all, but let's say it was 90%. And then just taking my 10% and growing that to a new audience who likes the Sometimes Show. I'm comfortable with that. I am. If tomorrow YouTube was like, hey, no one ever touched the Sometimes, we can show you every subscriber who never touched the Sometimes Show, every subscriber who probably won't watch the new thing. You have 350,000 subscribers. We're going to flip a switch, and that's going to take you back down to, let's say they'd said it took me back down to 40,000. I'd tell them to flip it. Just do it. Just go ahead and do it. That'd be fine. I'd almost be more comfortable there. People look at your metrics and go, wow, 350,000 subscribers, but only 20,000 people watched whatever. Must not be doing so good or whatever. I'd love the lower pressure. You know what I mean? To recover up into that. I do think that channel is going to grow though, because there's also a lot of vertical content planned, and that's the way to get subscribers on YouTube, made out of the Sometimes Show, mind you. But yeah, that's a part of the plan too. Okay. We only have one super chat left. I think I must have missed it. Let me go find it real quick. After Dylan's was what? There we go. Do you know what's so weird? This next super chat was the only super chat all night of every super chat we did. This is the only one that ended in 99 cents. All the others ended in 00. 700 bees in a human suit. Jim, and that usually has to do with device defaults. So I assume that means this is the only person who did it from an Android, maybe? Or is it iOS that it goes 99 cents? Or is that PC? Or is it Mac? I don't know. Anyway, it has nothing to do with somebody going, I want to save the 1 cent. For the record, I'm not saying that. 700 bees in a human suit says, Jimmy, oh, wait, we did that one. Will you be continuing the breakdown of the Mormon primary teachers? Maybe it's just because I didn't put it on the... Maybe I forgot to put it on the screen, but I responded to it. Let me just double check. Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got. Loving is what I got. Well, remember that. Loving. I got to pay more royalties. Why do I do this to myself? Not really, though. He's making it up, but sending money like he's not lying. No, remember, send money because I inherited it from that Australian prince. All right. Good night, everybody. This was great. I had so much fun. I hope you had fun. Here are, I don't think there's any music on this because I didn't prep it for music, but our patron producers. Shit, I think this is a slightly old list. There's probably a name or two missing. If you're a recent person, I'm very, very sorry. We'll get that fixed here soon. But thank you, everybody who is a patron. And don't forget, you can always go to patreon.com/calltheline and become a patron today. Usually that is what would fade in here. And yet I also didn't have that prepared. Again, this was a labor of love, but it was an intense, rapid labor that working up until the moment we started the show. And here we've gone nearly for 4 hours. Great seeing you all. Love y'all. Bye.